Chapter 2574. Although the number of underworld sacred corpses wasn't as high as before, they were much stronger. Emo Chinyun sensed that 70% of them were celestial domain grades, while a few of them were quasi-universe grades. These underworld sacred corpses are very strong. Don't fight them head-on. Emo Chinyun reminded Luo Jian and the others solemnly as they fought the underworld sacred corpses. Luo Jian didn't hesitate to use his mystique to attack the underworld sacred corpses when Emo Chinyun reminded them. Green Bull Ghost Wood Incantation. The divine flame sky splitter sword thrust forward, and a burst of sacred power erupted, turning into vines. As soon as these vines appeared, they wrapped around the dark underworld saint corpses in the surroundings. In an instant, the underworld sacred corpses' mobility was greatly restricted. Quick retreat. Emo Chinyun reminded everyone to fly towards the light mansion after restricting the underworld sacred corpses' mobility. Under Emo Chinyun's reminder, Luo Jian and the others hurriedly followed, and they quickly approached the light mansion. Roar, roar, roar! The underworld sacred corpses went berserk after their bodies were bound by the vines and their mobility was greatly restricted. As the nether saint corpses roared, a terrifying ghastly saint power erupted from their bodies. Bang, bang, bang! As the underworld sacred corpses struggled, the sacred power vines that bound them exploded one after another. After breaking free from the sacred power vines, the underworld sacred corpses moved their bodies and chased after Emo Chinyun and the others. 10,000 Mammoth Raging Bull Blood Formation. Luo Jian threw out a punch as he watched the underworld sacred corpses getting closer and closer. Terrifying sacred power erupted from his fist. The sacred power erupted and released a dazzling blood-red light that turned into a strange array pattern. Soon, a blood-red array formed behind Emo Chinyun and the others. As the 10,000 Mammoth Raging Bull Blood Formation took shape, the underworld sacred corpses that were close to it were imprisoned. Boom, boom, boom. The underworld sacred corpses went berserk after being imprisoned by the blood formation and bombarded the 10,000 Mammoth Raging Bull Blood Formation. The 10,000 Mammoth Raging Bull Blood Formation crumbled under the underworld sacred corpses' attacks. Retreat. Seeing this, Emo Chinyun's expression turned solemn and he retreated even faster. Not long after, Emo Chinyun and the others retreated as they fought. They arrived at the edge of the Mansion of Light. Light Shadow Thrust. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly flashed by, thrusting a sword towards Emo Chinyun and the others. Streaks of silver sword light flew out of the man's sword. Be careful! Emo Chinyun's expression trembled when he saw the sword aura suddenly stabbing towards him. He immediately warned everyone. Just as Emo Chinyun was reminding everyone, he arrived in front of them and raised his hand to block the sword light. Chi. Under Emo Chinyun's defense, several sword rays slammed into his body, leaving behind hideous wounds. Fortunately, Emo Chinyun's physical body was strong enough, and he was not seriously injured by the opponent's sword light. He actually didn't suffer any serious injuries after taking my sword head-on. What a strong body! The man exclaimed in surprise when he saw that his sword had not killed Emo Chinyun. Due to the man's sudden attack, the other people in the Mansion of Light poked their heads out one after another. Interesting. A mere galaxy-grade cultivation base can actually take Gu Hui's sword head-on without dying. It seems like Gu Hui's mansion can't be saved. His good days are coming to an end. A mere galaxy-grade cultivator with such strength. This time, a ruthless person has come. Don't gloat. That kid has defeated Gu Hui, so he will definitely come and challenge us. When these people poked their heads out, they started whispering to each other, feeling enmity towards Emo Chinyun and the others. Under everyone's gaze, Emo Chinyun suppressed the injuries in his body and glared coldly at Gu Hui. He knew that he had not offended this person ever since he had entered the underworld in sacred corpse. However, the other party didn't ask for any details and directly killed them. This wasn't just a little bit of punishment. Kill. Emo Chingyun was enraged. He did not say anything else and immediately rushed towards Gohui. When Emo Chingyun rushed towards Gohui, he did not hold back and activated all 20,000 Saint Power star clusters. In his opinion, no matter what the outcome was, the guy in front of him would have to die. A terrifying flame power suddenly erupted from Emo Chingyun's body, causing his aura to soar. Green bull sky splitting slash. When he arrived in front of Gohui, Emo Chingyun immediately slashed out with his sword, which emitted a dazzling green glow. Then, numerous green bull sword lights flew out from the divine flame sky splitting slash. Gohui's expression changed after seeing Emo Chingyun's attack. Shock appeared on his face as he said, "This is the first form of the Azure Ox Wood Sword art. This brat actually obtained it." Gohui's expression trembled when he recognized Emo Chingyun's sword art. The coldness in his eyes intensified. "I didn't expect that someone would take the initiative to deliver the green bull wood sword art to me," Gohui said proudly. He then revealed a cold smile and said, "If I obtain the green bull wood sword art and integrate it into the dark bull soul vanquishing sword art, I will be able to challenge the light divine palace in front of me." As soon as Gohui finished speaking, an expectant expression appeared on his face as he charged towards Emo Chingyun. Clang! 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 When Emo Chingyun and Gohui clashed, they frantically attacked each other, producing loud sounds. At the same time, terrifying shockwaves erupted from the two of them. Gohui was too strong. Therefore, Emo Chingyun did not gain any advantage in the battle. Fortunately, Luo Jian and the others were assisting from the side. Emo Chingyun's situation improved a little, and he managed to suppress Gohui. "Damn it, you're bullying me with numbers." Under the attacks of Emo Chingyun and the others, Gohui fell into a passive position. He showed an angry expression and said, "Kid, if you have the ability, fight me one-on-one. Don't rely on others' help." When he heard Gohui's words, Emo Chingyun showed a look of disdain and said sarcastically, "Is there something wrong with my brain? Do you think I would fight you one-on-one with my galaxy-grade cultivation?" When Emo Chingyun finished speaking, he did not say anything more to Gohui. He joined forces with Luo Jian and the others to kill him. At this moment, while Emo Chingyun and the others were fighting, the underworld Shadow Corpse broke free from the 1,000 Elephants Raging Bull Blood Formation. When it came out of the 1,000 Elephants Raging Bull Blood Formation, the underworld Shadow Corpse rapidly approached with a violent and bloodthirsty look. "The underworld Shadow Corpse is here. We have to end the battle as soon as possible." Seeing the approaching underworld Shadow Corpse, Emo Chingyun frowned and his mood immediately tensed up. If they were surrounded by the underworld Shadow Corpse, they would be attacked from the front and the back. The situation would become extremely bad. Gohui smiled proudly as he watched the approaching underworld Shadow Corpse. He said, "Kid, let's make a deal. You hand over the green bullwood sword art and break one of your arms. Then, I will let you enter the palace. How about it?" Chapter 2575. "I can still enter the divine abode after killing you." After Emo Chingyun said this, he attacked Gohui once again. He waved his flaming sword wildly. Under Emo Chingyun's violent attacks, Gohui kept retreating. He could no longer resist Emo Chingyun and the others. After suppressing Gohui, Emo Chingyun's eyes turned cold. He instructed Luo Jian and the others, "You guys hold him back first. I'm going to use a secret technique to kill his spirit." "Yes." Hearing Emo Chingyun's instructions, Luo Jian and Luo Jian immediately responded and fought Gohui with all their strength. After letting Luo Jian and Luo Jian hold Gohui back, Emo Chingyun no longer hesitated and used the Gate of Destiny. The Gate of Destiny! The Gate of Destiny! The Claw of Destiny. Emo Chingyun used several divine abilities in a row and blasted out a golden claw with a mysterious aura, grabbing at Gu Hui's head. Facing the attack of the Claw of Destiny, the Mouse of Destiny on Gu Hui's head immediately trembled in fear. Compared to Emo Chingyun's Dragon of Providence, the difference between its providence and Emo Chingyun's was just too great. Squeak! Under the grasp of the Claw of Destiny, the Mouse of Destiny on Gu Hui's head was immediately crushed to death. Then, the Mouse of Destiny was captured and brought in front of Emo Chingyun. The Vortex of Destiny. After capturing the Mouse of Destiny, Emo Chingyun did not hesitate in the slightest and immediately refined it. When Emo Chingyun refined the Mouse of Destiny, Gu Hui's body clearly trembled, and he felt uneasy. However, this feeling was very mysterious. He could not describe it. The Gate of Bloody Calamity. After seizing Gu Hui's providence, Emo Chingyun didn't stop. Instead, he used another divine ability on Gu Hui. With a wave of Emo Chingyun's hand, a small blood-colored gate of light flew into Gu Hui's body in the blink of an eye. Roar! While Emo Chingyun and Gu Hui were fighting, the holy corpses had all closed in on them. What surprised Emo Chingyun was that the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse attacked the Radiance Divine Palace the moment it got close. As for Emo Chingyun and the others, they completely ignored them, as if they did not see them at all. This situation made Emo Chingyun secretly happy. Puff! Gu Hui's mind was connected to the Light Divine Palace. Therefore, when the Light Divine Palace was attacked, his mind was immediately injured. Under normal circumstances, this wouldn't have mattered, but the situation now was different. Right now, he was fighting against Emo Chingyun and the others. The consequences of his mind being injured were too severe. My chance is here. Seeing that Gu Hui's mind was injured, Emo Chingyun's eyes lit up. He immediately shot out 2 beams of eye power. Due to the close distance between them and the sudden attack of the eye power, Gu Hui had no time to react at all. Then, Gu Hui was struck by the eye force, and his body froze on the spot. Slash! Seeing Gu Hui's reaction, Emo Chingyun thrust his sword at him, piercing through his neck. After piercing Gu Hui's neck, Emo Chingyun kicked Gu Hui out of the Light Divine Palace. Roar! After Gu Hui was kicked out of the Light Divine Palace, the smell of blood on his body immediately attracted the attention of the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse. Immediately, the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse gave up on the Light Divine Palace and surrounded Gu Hui. Don't come over. Looking at the dark underworld holy corpses that were closing in on him, Gu Hui's face trembled. He begged Emo Chingyun, "Little brother, I know I was wrong. Please save me." Without waiting for Gu Hui to finish speaking, he was drowned by the dark underworld holy corpses and fell into a situation where he was surrounded and attacked. Emo Chingyun ignored Gu Hui's pleas and began to search the Light Divine Palace. He wanted to find the core of the Light Divine Palace and take control of it from Gu Hui. Over there. Through Emo Chingyun's perception, he discovered a stone tablet that was connected to the entire mansion. If he wasn't mistaken, this strange stone tablet was the core of the Light Divine Palace. "I'm going to refine this stone tablet. Guard it for me." Emo Chingyun approached the stone tablet and began to refine it, fighting with Gu Hui for control of the Light Divine Palace. Gu Hui couldn't concentrate and communicate with Emo Chingyun because he had to deal with the Nether Shadow Holy Corp. After a while, the soul mark Gu Hui left behind was easily erased by Emo Chingyun. "Brat, you!" Gu Hui was furious when he realized that Emo Chingyun had easily erased the soul mark he left behind. Unfortunately, he was surrounded by the Nether Shadow Holy Corp. He couldn't do anything even if he was angry. As time passed, Gu Hui's resistance became weaker and weaker. In the end, he died in the hands of the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse. After Gu Hui was killed, his body began to mutate and became a new Nether Shadow Holy Corpse. Seeing this scene, Emo Chingyun's heart immediately trembled. He was shocked by this situation. He didn't expect the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse in the sacred city to evolve like this. I'm finally done refining it. While Emo Qingyun was still in shock, he successfully refined the stone tablet in the Light Divine Palace. Emo Qingyun's expression relaxed when he successfully took control of the Light Divine Palace. The crisis was temporarily resolved. After resolving the immediate crisis, Emo Qingyun looked at the other residences, wanting to see what was different about them. When Emo Qingyun looked at the other residences, the people in the other residences had complicated expressions on their faces. This brat is ruthless. He killed Go Hui so quickly. Go Hui was too impulsive. If he didn't fight, that brat wouldn't have been able to do anything to him. In the end, Go Hui underestimated his opponent and paid a painful price. This brat is not to be trifled with. We should stay away from him in the future. Everyone looked at Emo Qingyun and left, no longer paying attention to Emo Qingyun and the others. Emo Qingyun didn't pay attention to the reactions of others. He looked away after a while. Once Emo Qingyun returned to his residence, he began to recuperate and recover his energy from the previous battle. Time passed little by little while Emo Qingyun and the others cultivated. The sky gradually darkened. As the sky gradually darkened, the radiance of the Light Divine Palace also weakened, greatly reducing the threat to the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse. Especially Emo Qingyun's residence, the radiance was the most severely weakened, and the threat to the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse was the least. Seeing this, Emo Qingyun understood the difference between these residences. The better the residence, the stronger the radiance, and the greater the threat to the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse. The difference wasn't obvious during the day, but it was obvious at night. Roar. 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 As the radiance of the Light Divine Palace weakened, the suppression on the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse weakened, and they quickly approached. As the Nether Shadow Holy Corpse approached, they began to attack the Light Divine Palace. Seeing this, Emo Qingyun didn't dare to be careless. He immediately instructed Luo Jian and the others, "Let's fight and repel these Nether Shadow Holy Corpses." As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, he rushed towards the Nether Shadow Holy Corpses and stopped them from attacking the Light Divine Palace. Chapter 2576. Renjun, stabilize the formation and repair the damaged parts of the formation. Emo Qingyun summoned Renjun to stabilize the formation of the Radiant's divine residence while he was killing the Holy Corpse. Although the strange light in the Radiant's divine residence had a restraining effect on the Holy Corpse, but without the protection of the formation, the light would disappear if the Radiant's divine residence was destroyed. Therefore, the most important thing now was to protect the Radiant's divine residence and use the light to intimidate the Holy Corpse. Yes. Renjun responded and went to guard the formation after receiving Emo Qingyun's order. While Renjun was guarding the formation, he was also setting up a new formation to increase the defensive power of the Radiant's divine residence. Emo Qingyun nodded with satisfaction when he saw Renjun's actions. He admired Renjun even more. It was a wise decision to subdue him back then. Renjun had played a big role now. Without Renjun, the formation of the Radiant's divine residence would continue to be destroyed and the situation would get worse. If that's the case, as long as we survive tonight, the situation tomorrow will be much better. Emo Qingyun's mind spun. He had a clear understanding of the situation he was in. As long as they could survive tonight, Renjun would set up a new formation to increase the defensive power of the Radiant's divine residence. At that time, even if the Holy Corpse attacked again, the pressure on them would be greatly reduced. It seems like I have to subdue a few more Saint-Array masters if I have the chance in the future. Seeing how useful Renjun was, Emo Qingyun's mind spun and he had a clear plan. As Emo Qingyun pondered this, his attacks became fiercer and fiercer as he frantically attacked the underworld dark sacred corpse. Green Bull Sky Breaking Slash. Green Bull Sky Soaring Pillar. Green Bull Ghost Wood Incantation. Sacred Glory Super Ability Ignite. Mo Qingyun used several of his combat arts one after another to force the dark underworld Saint corpse back. However, since Mo Qingyun did not dare to pursue, the holy corpse quickly returned. Following that, Mo Qingyun and the dark underworld holy corpse entered a stalemate. Although Mo Qingyun felt a little helpless in this situation, he was still quite satisfied. He said, "Although I can't kill the dark underworld sacred corpse, it's still a good result to be able to block their attacks. It's fine as long as we maintain this situation." After stabilizing the situation, Mo Qingyun observed his surroundings and looked at the other divine radiance dwellings. Mo Qingyun was slightly startled when he saw the situation in the other divine radiance dwellings. The sword arts they're using seem to be the same as Guhui's. Moreover, they're much more lethal to the dark underworld holy corpse than other divine abilities. Noticing this abnormal situation, Mo Qingyun was immediately puzzled. At the same time, he was also curious. He said, "These people are using the same sword techniques. They should have learned them here. Where did they get the sword techniques?" After racking his brain for a while, Mo Qingyun threw away all distracting thoughts and prepared to look for the holy corpse after it retreated. If he could master this sword art, it would be much easier to deal with the holy corpse. Time passed by slowly as Mo Qingyun resisted the holy corpse. The sky gradually brightened. As the sky brightened, the radiance emitted by the divine radiance dwellings grew stronger. As the radiance of the divine radiance dwellings grew stronger, the attacking holy corpse began to retreat. About 2 hours later, the holy corpse that had besieged the divine radiance dwellings finally retreated. "They're finally retreating." Seeing that the holy corpse had retreated, Mo Qingyun's expression relaxed. His heart was finally at ease. If this battle had continued for another day and a half, he wouldn't have been able to endure it. This kind of high-intensity battle consumed too much of his holy force. His situation was slightly better. After all, he had 20,000 Saint Force star clusters and the Fortune mainland to replenish his energy. On the other hand, Luo Jian and the others' situation wasn't so optimistic. After a night of intense battle, Luo Jian and the others had clearly overdrawn their holy force. Looking at their performance, they wouldn't be able to continue fighting for another 2 hours. Fortunately, the holy corpse has retreated. I can't hold on any longer. Seeing that the holy corpse had retreated, Luo Jian and the others' expressions relaxed and they collapsed to the ground. Then, Luo Jian and the others began to cultivate and recover the holy force they had expended. Seeing Luo Jian and the others' actions, Mo Qingyun didn't disturb them. He went to look for the sword art that Guhui had used. In his opinion, Guhui must have learned this sword art from the divine radiance dwellings. Following that, Mo Qingyun began to search the holy corpse in the divine radiance dwellings. Not long after, Mo Qingyun found a giant white bull statue in a huge palace. It exuded a fierce aura. Seeing this giant white bull statue, Mo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. A look of excitement appeared on his face as he said, "This is a divine ability statue. It seems that the sword art that Guhui had comprehended must have come from here." After this discovery, Mo Qingyun didn't hesitate and immediately released a surge of soul force. His soul force seeped into the divine ability statue. Mo Qingyun saw a white-robed man practicing a sword art inside the divine ability statue. This sword art is Guhui's light and shadow thrust. After observing for a while, Mo Qingyun clearly recognized the sword move that the white-robed man used. After recognizing the sword art, Mo Qingyun focused even more to comprehend the sword art that the white-robed man was practicing. After observing for a while, Mo Qingyun realized that the white-robed man's sword art was always the light and shadow thrust. No wonder when Guhui fought with us, he always used the light and shadow thrust. As soon as Mo Qingyun thought about it, his doubts were resolved. He began to speculate again. If I'm not mistaken, the higher the level of the radiant divine residence, the more moves there will be. If I want to obtain the complete sword art, I'll have to head to a higher level radiant divine residence. Emo Qingyun's thoughts were immediately clear. He couldn't help but look at the highest level divine light palace. It seemed that he had to make a trip there if he wanted to obtain the complete sword art. Then, Emo Qingyun's eyes immediately became more fervent. I'm not in a hurry to fight for the other divine light palaces. I have too many sword arts now. I'll integrate them first. Although he had decided to fight for a better divine light palace, Missouri Qingyun didn't do it immediately. He wanted to improve his strength first. Emo Qingyun thought in his heart. He was looking forward to the attack of the underworld In Saint Corp. He thought to himself, if I want to practice the sword art, I need to experience continuous battles. This palace has the most underworld In Saint corpses. It's the most suitable place for me to practice the sword art. Chapter 2577. Discovering the benefits of the dark underworld holy corpse, Emo Qingyun rejoiced. He was happy that he could come here. If he did not come here, it would definitely be a headache for him to practice a few sword arts. Wanting to find so many powerful and unkillable sparring partners was not an easy matter. Since it's like this, let's start comprehending the sword arts. Emo Qingyun decided to do it. He directly sat down cross-legged on the spot and started comprehending the sword arts that he obtained. The dark underworld holy corpse would attack at night. He had to seize every minute and every second to comprehend the sword arts as quickly as possible. At this stage, the main thing was to resist the dark underworld holy corpse's attack. Hence, he first comprehended the light shadow stab. The light shadow stab was the first move of the Sun Bull Soul extinguishing sword art. It was also a type of the 9 directions divine bull sword art. With this calculation, he had already found 8 types of sword techniques in the current 9 directions divine ox sword technique. As long as he found the last one, he would have the complete sword art. When Emo Qingyun was comprehending the light shadow stab, a surge of pure yang energy gathered around his body. When this surge of yang energy gathered, Emo Qingyun clenched his right hand. The divine flame heaven splitting sword was condensed. Following the formation of the divine flame heaven splitting sword, the yang energy was poured into it, causing it to be enveloped in a layer of light. Light shadow stab. Pouring the yang energy into the divine flame heaven splitting sword, Emo Qingyun took a step forward and stabbed out with the sword. Under Emo Qingyun's sword, streaks of imposing sword light flew out from the divine flame heaven splitting sword. The sword light flew out from the divine flame heaven splitting sword and turned into several light bulls, rushing forward. Bang bang bang, under the charge of several light bulls, the space trembled as if it could not withstand their attack. Seeing the power of his sword, Emo Qingyun's expression shook. His face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. The attacking method of this light shadow thrust is somewhat similar to the green ox heaven breaking slash, but the power used is different. Seeing the might of the light shadow stab, Emo Qingyun analyzed it and said, the azure ox heaven cleaving slash focuses on crushing and trampling, while the light shadow stab pursues penetration. One targets a group, while the other targets a single target. After Emo Qingyun made a comparison, he clearly understood the difference between the two sword move. Now that he had a clear understanding of Luster Stab's attack method, Emo Qingyun didn't waste any more time and continued to practice it. Emo Qingyun patiently practiced it over and over again. His comprehension of the light shadow thrust was becoming more and more proficient. Several hours later, Emo Qingyun's mastery of the light shadow thrust had reached a bottleneck, so he stopped practicing. He knew that if he wanted to improve his comprehension of the light shadow thrust, he would need to experience a real battle. Since I can't comprehend the light shadow thrust anymore, then I'll practice other sword techniques. Seeing that he couldn't practice the light shadow thrust, Emo Qingyun didn't waste any more time and started to practice other sword technique. He thought to himself, My control of the power of thunder and fire is the most proficient and powerful. Therefore, the sword techniques I choose to practice should be of the thunder and fire attribute. Should I practice the Raging Bull Flame Sword technique, or the Thunder Bull Movement Sword technique? Emo Qingyun thought in his heart. He finally decided to practice the Raging Bull Flame Sword technique. In comparison, the attack power of the Raging Bull Flame Sword technique was more violent and domineering. Furthermore, the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash was compatible with the Raging Bull Flame Sword technique, so the battle power it could unleash was even stronger. The Raging Bull Flame Sword technique was the same as the Green Ox Wood Sword technique. It also had 4 sword moves. These 4 sword moves were the Raging Bull Flame Sword technique, Raging Bull Meteor Flame Slash, Raging Bull Armor Breaking Slash, and Raging Bull Heaven Burning Sword technique. After a simple glance at the sword technique, Emo Qingyun seriously and carefully comprehended the 4 sword move. After a period of comprehension, Emo Qingyun had a rough understanding of the 4 sword move. Raging Bull Flame Sword. Emo Qingyun roared angrily and swung the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash, erupting with a violent flame power. When the flame power slashed out, it turned into flaming bulls that ran wildly. As the flaming bulls ran, they kept bursting with flames. Every time the flaming bulls burst with flames, they would produce a violent power that increased the power of the sword move. What a violent sword move! In terms of attack power, it's 70% stronger than the Green Ox Heaven Breaking Slash. Seeing the power of his move, Emo Qingyun's heart trembled. He was shocked by the power of the Raging Bull Flame Sword. It had to be said that in terms of attack power, the wood attribute was much weaker than the fire attribute. Again, seeing the power of the Raging Bull Flame Sword, Emo Qingyun immediately had a strong sense of anticipation for the power of the next few moves. Following that, Emo Qingyun slashed out again, causing the sky and earth to change color. Fire clouds gathered in the sky, forming a sea of fire in the blink of an eye. Flaming bull meteors fell one after another. When these flaming bull meteors fell, they charged with the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash, like mad bulls that were not afraid of death. Although the attack power of this move is inferior to the Raging Bull Flame Sword, the Flaming Bull Meteor has a confusing effect. After executing the Flaming Bull Meteor Slash, Emo Qingyun immediately analyzed its attack and characteristic. After roughly understanding the Flaming Bull Meteor Slash, Emo Qingyun executed the Raging Fire Armor Breaking Slash to see what its characteristics were. Emo Qingyun raised his arm and held the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash horizontally. He stabbed forward with the sword. As Emo Qingyun brandished his sword, his body flew out like an arrow and the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash flickered with flames. An arrow-like sword light blasted out of the Divine Flame Heaven Breaking Slash and blasted into the void. Crack! Due to the bombardment of the sword light, the void immediately shattered and a fiery fissure appeared. After a while, the power of the flames dissipated slowly and the shattered space was restored. How powerful! Even a quasi-universe-grade powerhouse would find it difficult to withstand this attack. Emo Qingyun was delighted when he saw the power of his move. He was looking forward to the next move even more. Immediately, Emo Qingyun executed the Raging Bull Flame Heaven Breaking Slash with anticipation. What surprised Emo Qingyun was that the situation was the same as the Green Bull Wood Sword technique. The fourth move was also unable to be executed. It seems like I have to completely comprehend the first 3 moves before I can execute the fourth move. Emo Qingyun didn't mind that he couldn't execute the Raging Bull Flame Heaven Breaking Slash, and started to cultivate the first 3 moves. Emo Qingyun spent the rest of the time cultivating. Time passed by quietly. As time passed, the sky gradually darkened and the radiance of the radiant spiritual palace weakened. As the radiance of the radiant spiritual palace weakened, The underworld sacred corpses attacked again and surrounded the radiant spiritual palace. Emo Qingyun smiled faintly as he watched the underworld sacred corpses attack again. A strong battle intent rose in him. He was waiting for the underworld sacred corpses to arrive and help him practice a few sword moves. Then, Emo Qingyun took the lead and charged towards the group of underworld sacred corpses. Chapter 2578. Raging Bull Bursting Flame Slash. Emo Qingyun arrived in front of the holy underworld corpse and slashed out. Raging flames surged on the divine flame heaven splitter sword. Raging flames gushed out from the divine flame heaven splitter sword like a volcanic eruption and turned into streaks of flaming sword light. The flaming sword light was like a ferocious tiger as it rushed into the center of the holy underworld corpse and exploded. Bang bang bang, a series of loud noises rang out. When the flaming sword light exploded, it produced a terrifying power that burned the surrounding holy underworld corpses. Under the burning flames, the surrounding holy underworld corpses were immediately burned into charcoal. In just one exchange, the holy underworld corpse that attacked the light divine palace was overbearingly repelled by Emo Qingyun. Light Shadow Thrust. After repelling the holy underworld corpse, Emo Qingyun's attack did not stop as he slashed out at another holy underworld corpse. A crescent-shaped sword light blasted out from the divine flame heaven splitter sword and slashed at the holy underworld corpse's neck. Poochie. After being struck by the light shadow sword, the holy underworld corpse's head immediately fell to the ground. After losing its head, the holy underworld corpse's body went limp as it fell to the ground and constantly wriggled. If one observed carefully, they would discover that it was not dead. Looking at its current actions, it seemed to be searching for its head and trying to put it back together. Emo Qingyun did not pay attention to the holy underworld corpse's actions as his attention fell on the other holy underworld corpses. Although this holy underworld corpse was not dead, it had lost its battle strength and was no longer a threat to Emo Qingyun. This was already enough. Light Shadow Thrust. After crippling a holy underworld corpse with a single slash, Emo Qingyun's attack did not decrease as he attacked another holy underworld corpse. Under Emo Qingyun's slash, another imposing sword light blasted out from the divine flame heaven splitter sword. Poochie. After being struck by the divine flame heaven splitter sword, another holy underworld corpse's head was chopped off by Emo Qingyun. Subsequently, this holy underworld corpse followed in the footsteps of the previous one. Again, seeing the results of his battle, Emo Qingyun's fighting spirit soared. He no longer passively defended. Emo Qingyun leaped into the center of the dark underworld saint corpses, taking the initiative to fight them. Holy Glory Theurgy Light Coil. Thunder Fire Dragon Sacred Body. Nebula Saint Cloth. Emo Qingyun rushed into the center of the dark underworld holy corpse and cast a few divine arts to increase his defense. With the increase in his defense, Emo Qingyun's battle prowess immediately increased by a few notches. Gradually, the dark underworld holy corpses around Emo Qingyun were slaughtered. The other members of the radiant divine palace were shocked when they saw Emo Qingyun's reaction. That kid's battle prowess is terrifying. Hey, that kid's flaming sword art seems to be the flaming mad bull sword art. That wood-type sword art is also a bit like the green ox wood sword art. Does this mean that this kid has 3 types of the 9-directional godly bull sword art? This kid is really lucky. He actually obtained 3 types of sword art. Some of the discerning people who observed Emo Qingyun's performance recognized the sword arts he was using. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Emo Qingyun fought bravely, and the battle prowess he displayed became stronger and stronger. Slowly, the area within a kilometer of Emo Qingyun was emptied out by his killing spree. Due to Emo Qingyun's astonishing performance, a quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse was attracted to him. Back. The quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse roared and turned into a streak of black light that rapidly approached Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun's heart shuddered when he sensed the quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse approaching. He felt a strong sense of unease. It will be very difficult for me to deal with a quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse. I shouldn't clash head-on with it. Mo Qingyun made up his mind and immediately retreated into the Radiant Spiritual Palace. The light within the Radiant Spiritual Palace had a suppressive effect on the dark underworld sacred corpse. The quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse's strength would be weakened if it approached the Radiant Spiritual Palace. When that happened, Mo Qingyun would have a huge advantage if he fought it again. Mo Qingyun's body flickered a few times before he returned to the vicinity of the Radiant Spiritual Palace and stared at the quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse. You must have a death wish. The quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse roared in a hoarse voice as it arrived in front of Mo Qingyun. A mass of black qi erupted from the body of the quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse. When this mass of black qi appeared, it transformed into the shadow of a tiger that devoured the deathly aura within the dark underworld sacred corpse. In the blink of an eye, the aura of the tiger's shadow increased by several times. Dark underworld tiger, tear him apart! The quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse ordered before the black tiger's shadow lunged towards Mo Qingyun. The dark underworld tiger's body flashed and appeared behind Mo Qingyun in the blink of an eye. Then, the tiger's shadow extended its claw and slapped Mo Qingyun's back. Mo Qingyun's clothes were torn apart by the dark underworld tiger's claw, and a wound appeared on his back. Fortunately, Mo Qingyun's physical body was extremely strong and this wound wasn't too deep. Everyone who had been paying attention to Mo Qingyun was shocked when they saw his performance. The dark underworld tiger's attack actually didn't cripple that kid. That kid's physical body is too terrifying. It's comparable to a celestial domain-grade armor. Even if he has a sacred body, his defensive capabilities shouldn't be this abnormal. This kid is a scourge. If we let him grow, we will all become his stepping stones. The other members of the Light Divine Palace were even more hostile towards Mo Qingyun when they saw the strength that Mo Qingyun had displayed. In their opinion, if they allowed Mo Qingyun to grow, they would all be trampled underfoot. Mo Qingyun wasn't interested in what these people were thinking. He was only concerned about the dark underworld tiger. He hadn't expected that the dark underworld tiger's attack would be so fast that he wouldn't be able to catch it. This meant that he was in a very bad situation. What a fast speed! Mo Qingyun broke out in a cold sweat when he saw the dark underworld tiger's attack. He didn't even have time to react. If his physical body hadn't been strong enough, the dark underworld tiger's claw would have been enough to make him lose his ability to fight. If that had happened, he would have been killed by the quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse. A quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse is indeed very strong. After walking through the gates of hell, Mo Qingyun immediately became vigilant and didn't dare to underestimate the enemy in the slightest. Then, Mo Qingyun's body moved and he returned to the Light Divine Palace. He was worried that the quasi-universe-grade dark underworld sacred corpse might have other powerful trump cards besides summoning the dark underworld tiger. The dark underworld tiger couldn't hurt him, but that didn't mean that other mystic abilities couldn't hurt him either. Chapter 2579. Mo Qingyun was right. The quasi-universe-grade underworld sacred corpse did have other powerful technique. However, he had hidden in the Radiant Divine Palace, so the other party had no chance to attack. Furthermore, the dark underworld tiger had stopped attacking when Mo Qingyun had entered the Radiant Divine Palace. Fortunately, I successfully seized the Radiant Divine Palace. I might have suffered a setback against the quasi-universe-grade underworld sacred corpse. Mo Qingyun felt a lingering fear as he thought about the combined strength of the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse and the dark underworld Tiger. Given his current strength, he would only be a punching bag if he encountered them. More importantly, there were other underworld Yin Sacred Corpses nearby. They would exhaust him to death sooner or later. It seems like I won't be able to continue honing my sword techniques if this quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse doesn't leave. As Mo Qingyun thought about this, he analyzed his own situation and didn't rush out to fight. He wasn't in a hurry to hone his sword technique. He could take his time. After all, there would be plenty of opportunities later on. Mo Qingyun didn't believe that the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse would continue to waste time with him. He wasn't the only one in the Radiant Divine Palace who possessed powerful fighting strength. Sure enough, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse left not long after. After the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse left, Mo Qingyun didn't waste any more time and continued to fight the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse. My performance just now was too shocking. I have to restrain myself now. Mo Qingyun's attacks weakened slightly as he fought the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse once again. He was now in a deadlock with it. After all, his goal was just to hone his sword techniques, not to kill the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse. The quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse no longer paid any attention to Mo Qingyun after he restrained his attack. In the time that followed, Mo Qingyun continued to hone his sword art. Time passed slowly and quietly. Mo Qingyun's actions might have fooled the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse, but they didn't fool anyone else. What a crafty kid. He wants to use the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse to hone his sword technique. That kid's comprehension ability is really high. His mastery of several sword techniques is increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this rate, he will be able to completely master the 3 sword techniques in 3 days at most. To us, this is not a good thing. We have to think of a way to sabotage it. Seeing Mo Qingyun's amazing performance, some people with bad intentions secretly schemed against him. Not long after, a late Star Domain young man approached Mo Qingyun and yelled, "Little brother, I'm here to help you kill these dark Nether Saint corpses." Light Shadow Thrust. That person approached Mo Qingyun and waved his long sword madly, destroying the Yin Nether Saint corpses around him. In just a short while, he had crippled nearly 10 early-stage Star Domain Dark Underworld holy corpses nearby. Due to this person's astonishing performance, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse, which had left earlier, immediately noticed him. Roar. The quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse roared angrily and flew towards Mo Qingyun, once again regarding Mo Qingyun as an important enemy. Mo Qingyun frowned when he saw this. His heart sank. At the same time, he also felt a strong sense of enmity towards the person in front of him. Given his intelligence and eyesight, how could he not see that the fellow in front of him was doing this on purpose? His goal was to draw the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse back so that he wouldn't be able to hone his sword technique. Little brother, this underworld Yin Sacred Corpse isn't easy to deal with. Let's retreat quickly. That person smiled slyly when he saw the quasi-universe-grade underworld Yin Sacred Corpse approaching and immediately retreated towards the Radiant Divine Palace. That person's body flickered a few times before he was far away. Not long after, he returned to his own Radiant Divine Palace and abandoned Mo Qingyun. Huayin, you are really ruthless. Brother Huayin, I'm afraid that kid will hate you for doing this. It's not a good thing to offend that kid unless you can prevent future troubles. Everyone, don't make sarcastic remarks. Brother Huayin is doing this for all of us. Brother Huayin, I, Zhou will be the first to step forward if you are in trouble. The other members of the Radiant Divine Palace also expressed their stance when they saw that person's actions. Huayin nodded his head in satisfaction when he saw everyone's reaction. He cupped his hands and said, I appreciate everyone's kind intentions. After a simple response, Shanhua Yin's eyes flashed with a cold light. He glanced at Emo Qingyun and thought, "Brat, with the Yin underworld sacred corpse interfering, it's not convenient for me to do anything to you. Once the Yin underworld sacred corpse retreats, I'll slowly deal with you." After glancing at Emo Qingyun, Huayin retracted his gaze and focused on dealing with the underworld Yin sacred corpse near his residence. Emo Qingyun didn't dare hesitate when he saw Huayin leave. He immediately returned to the radiant divine palace. Next, Emo Qingyun waited for the quasi-universe grade underworld Yin sacred corpse to leave. What made Emo Qingyun feel a little helpless was that the quasi-universe grade underworld Yin sacred corpse didn't leave even after the sky had turned bright. Gradually, the radiance within the radiant divine palace grew stronger. As the radiance of the radiant divine palace grew stronger, the underworld Yin sacred corpse that had attacked the radiant divine palace also started to retreat. It seems like I can only wait until tonight. Emo Qingyun couldn't help but sigh when he saw the underworld Yin sacred corpse retreat. His plan to hone his sword techniques had been completely ruined by that fella called Huayin. Very well, I will remember this debt. I will slowly settle it with you later. Emo Qingyun's eyes flashed coldly as he glanced at Huayin's radiant divine palace. He would slowly deal with him later. He had just arrived and wasn't clear about the situation yet. Hence, he shouldn't rush into a fight with Huayin. Huayin was different from Gohui. Firstly, he was stronger. Secondly, he had made a move in the name of helping Emo Qingyun. It wouldn't be right if Emo Qingyun took revenge on him because of this. Since the underworld Yin sacred corpse has retreated, I will comprehend other sword techniques. Emo Qingyun retracted his gaze and walked into a large hall in preparation to comprehend sword technique. Meanwhile, Luo Jian and the others returned to the radiant divine palace to recuperate. Not long after, a shout was heard from outside the radiant divine palace. "Little brother, we have come to pay you a visit. Please come out and meet us." Emo Qingyun frowned when he heard Huayin's shout and retreated from his cultivation. At the same time, Emo Qingyun's face darkened, and the anger in his heart grew even stronger. He thought to himself, "Looks like I have to make a move and give him some suffering. Otherwise, he'll really think I'm a pushover." Chapter 2580. Before long, Emo Qingyun arrived outside the Divine Light residence and saw Shanhua Yin and the others standing at the entrance. Shanhua Yin and the others sneered when they saw Emo Qingyun walk out, like hunters looking at their prey. In their eyes, Emo Qingyun was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. They believed that it would be too easy to deal with Emo Qingyun with their combined strength. "Gentlemen, why did you call me out in such a hurry?" Emo Qingyun asked coldly as he glanced at Shanhua Yin and the others. Shanhua Yin sneered when he heard Emo Qingyun's question. "Little brother, I risked my life to help you defeat the underworld shadow corpse last night. Don't tell me you don't want to thank me at all?" When Huayin said this, the cold smile on his face became even more pronounced. It was obvious that he wanted to extort Emo Qingyun and make Emo Qingyun pay a price. The others sneered when they heard Shanhua Yin's words. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. In their eyes, a good show was about to begin. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Emo Qingyun's expression turned cold. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he looked at Huayin. He hadn't settled the score with this guy for messing up the situation last night, but he came to take credit today. He had to admit that this guy was shameless and thick-skinned. Emo Qingyun was furious, but he didn't show it immediately. He asked coldly, "How do you think I should express my gratitude for what happened last night?" Shanhua Yin rolled his eyes when he heard Emo Qingyun's question. He smiled sinisterly and said, "Little brother, I'm very interested in the sword techniques you used last night. Why don't you teach them to me as a sign of gratitude?" The others became excited when they heard Shanhua Yin's words. It was obvious that Shanhua Yin had reached an agreement with them before he came. You're a good schemer. After knowing Huayi's request, Emo Qingyun had a clear understanding of his intentions. After vaguely mocking Shan Huayin, Emo Qingyun's expression turned cold. He used a provocative tone to ask, "If I don't agree to your request, what will you do?" Hawktree Shade seemed to have expected Emo Qingyun's attitude. Therefore, when Emo Qingyun rejected his suggestion, he did not show any emotion. Locust Tree Shade looked around and revealed a mischievous smile. He changed the topic. "Little brother, is this how you entertain guests? Are you going to keep me waiting at the door?" As soon as Huayin said that, the aura he exuded immediately became sharper. Looking at his current behavior, it seemed that if Emo Qingyun made the slightest mistake, he would attack Emo Qingyun. Under Huayin's gaze, Emo Qingyun said with a cold expression, "I will naturally invite a guest into my residence, but I can't let a wolf into my house when it comes to people with ill intentions." Emo Qingyun's reply immediately enraged Huayin. His expression darkened. He had not expected Emo Qingyun to speak to him with such an attitude. Emo Qingyun ignored Shan Huayin's anger. With an impatient expression, he said, "Gentlemen, it was too tiring to resist the Underworld Saint's corpse last night. I still need to recover my saint energy. If you have nothing else to say, please forgive me for not having time to accompany you." After Emo Qingyun finished speaking, he ignored Huayin and the others and turned to walk back into the Divine Light residence. "What an ungrateful brat! Today I'll teach you how to be a person." Huayin panicked when he saw that Emo Qingyun was about to return to his residence. He immediately sent a palm strike at Emo Qingyun. Huayin did not show any mercy when he attacked. He used the full power of his late-stage, celestial domain-grade cultivation. As Huayin made his move, an imposing palm shadow blasted towards Emo Qingyun's back. "I knew you would do this." Emo Qingyun sensed Huayin's palm strike as soon as it blasted out. As soon as Emo Qingyun said that, he turned around and threw a punch at the incoming palm strike. Boom! Under Emo Qingyun's punch, the palm shadow was instantly smashed apart. After defeating Huayin's palm shadow, Emo Qingyun revealed a disdainful expression and said mockingly, "If you want to steal my sword technique, just make a move. There's no need to find so many excuses. You're already a whore and you still want to pretend to be chaste? You have a death wish." Huayin was enraged when he heard Emo Qingyun's words. As soon as he said that, he took out a long sword that exuded an astonishing aura. Based on the aura of this sword, it should be a celestial domain-grade weapon. "Forget it. You messed up my sword technique last night. Today, I'll use you to hone my sword technique." Emo Qingyun did not seem to mind Huayin's attack. Instead, he exuded a strong fighting intent. Emo Qingyun clenched his right fist, and a strong flame power formed a flaming sword in his right hand. Fire armor-breaking slash. As soon as the divine flame sky-splitting sword was formed, Emo Qingyun took a step forward and turned into a streak of light. In the blink of an eye, Emo Qingyun had arrived in front of Huayin and thrust his sword at him. As Emo Qingyun thrust his sword forward, the divine flame sky-splitting sword blazed brightly, as if it could incinerate heaven and earth. Then, a flaming sword light shot out like a serpent coming out of its cave. What a powerful sword! No wonder this kid could defeat Gohui. Huayin was shocked when he saw the power of Emo Qingyun's sword. He immediately brandished the long sword in his hand. As Huayin brandished his sword, a dazzling light bloomed from his long sword. Then, a dazzling light shadow met the flaming sword light head-on. The two sword lights collided. The light shadow sword light shadow was like a wooden stake that was directly broken by the flaming sword light shadow. After breaking the light shadow sword light shadow, the flaming sword light's offensive power did not diminish. It continued to fly toward Huayin. As this happened too quickly, Huayin could not dodge in time and was directly hit by the flaming sword light. How could this be? Hua Yin was shocked to be injured by the flaming sword light. His eyes were filled with horror. With his late-stage, celestial domain-grade cultivation, he had actually been crushed in a head-on confrontation with Mo Qingyun. This result was too much of a blow to him. This kid's strength is terrifying. He actually defeated Hua Yin. Light attribute sword techniques are mainly used to restrain undead creatures. In terms of offensive power, they are inferior to fire attribute sword technique. Hua Yin might not be his match. Should we help? Let's wait and see. Don't be in a hurry to make a move. This kid is not a good person. Although they were shocked by Mo Qingyun's performance, they were not in a hurry to join the battle. In their opinion, they had to consider carefully before making an enemy of someone like Mo Qingyun. Chapter 2581. You guys, why aren't you lending me a hand? Seeing how powerful Mo Qingyun was, Hua Yin panicked and immediately asked for help from the others. When they heard Hua Yin's words, they looked at each other and hesitated on whether they should help. If Mo Qingyun was easy to deal with, they wouldn't hesitate to attack him. However, the current situation wasn't right. Mo Qingyun's strength had greatly exceeded their expectations. They had joined the battle. If they couldn't get rid of Mo Qingyun, there would be endless trouble in the future. Hua Yin panicked when he saw that the others were hesitating. He knew what they were thinking. After that, Hua Yin gritted his teeth while a wisp of a ruthless expression appeared on his face. He said, "After we kill this kid, I'll split the 3 sword techniques in his possession equally with all of you. How about it?" The eyes of the others lit up when they heard Hua Yin's words. Hua Yin's offer was enough for them to take the risk. "Brother Hua Yin, what are you doing? We're here to help. Given our relationship, it's not a problem for us to help." They pretended to be polite and then joined the battle. They attacked Mo Qingyun together. As these people joined the battle, the pressure on Mo Qingyun immediately increased by several times. Humph! Mo Qingyun snorted coldly after blocking the first wave of attacks. He said, "Some muddy waters are not to be trifled with. Since the few of you are courting death, I will deal with all of you together. Sacred glory, ignite. Thunder fire dragon sacred body. Nebula saint robe. Raging bull flame sword." After Mo Qingyun said that, he didn't hold back anymore and used several sacred powers in succession. As Mo Qingyun displayed several divine abilities, the battle prowess he displayed immediately increased by more than several times. Following that, the pressure on Mo Qingyun rapidly decreased. "I'll kill you first." After blocking some of Hua Yin's attacks, Mo Qingyun looked around and chose a target. Although this person was at the advanced star sector level, his combat strength was far inferior to Hua Yin and the others. Even Gu Hui, who had been killed earlier, wasn't much weaker than him. Mo Qingyun had no difficulty dealing with him. Green Bull Ghost Wood Incantation. Mo Qingyun stabbed the heaven-piercing divine flame sword in front of him and immediately released a burst of saint power. Then, the saint power turned into green bulls and rushed out in all directions. As the green bull charged forward, numerous intimidating rattan vines enveloped Mo Qingyun and him. Seeing that he was trapped by the vines, the man panicked and his body trembled uncontrollably. In the fight just now, TSS's strength. In a one-on-one fight, he was no match for Mo Qingyun. Therefore, now that he was trapped, it was definitely not good news. "Since you like to meddle in other people's business, I'll have a fair fight with you." After trapping his opponent, Mo Qingyun immediately attacked him, thrusting his sword at him. Mo Qingyun's figure flashed and turned into a flame, arriving in front of the man. Fire armor-breaking slash. Arriving in front of the man, Mo Qingyun waved his arm and slashed out a violent sword ray. When the sword light was blasted out, it was like a dragon roaring in the sea as it pounced on the man. Little brother, let's talk nicely." Seeing the sword ray rapidly approaching, the man's expression changed and he quickly begged Mo Qingyun for mercy. He clearly remembered that when Shan Huai-yin and Emo Qingyun were fighting just now, he had been injured by this move. Huai-yin couldn't even take it, let alone him who was weaker. Bright Moon Backwind Slash. Although the man was panicking, he didn't wait for death and immediately swung his sword to block the flaming sword ray. As the man swung his sword, the long sword glowed with a greenish-white light and blasted out several crescent-shaped sword rays. When the crescent-shaped sword rays blasted out, green whirlwinds swept up in all directions. Then, the crescent-shaped sword rays and whirlwinds met the flaming sword rays. Bang bang bang, under the flaming sword rays bombardment, the crescent-shaped sword rays and whirlwinds exploded one after another. After the crescent-shaped sword rays and whirlwinds exploded, the flaming sword rays attack didn't stop and continued to slash at the man. Facing the flaming sword rays bombardment, the man panicked and even forgot to resist. Then, the flaming sword rays pierced through his body and sent him flying. When the man was sent flying, he spat out a mouthful of blood and his face became as pale as a sheet of paper. Clearly, under Emo Qingyun's sword, he suffered heavy injuries. After the man steadied himself, he revealed a terrified expression and said, Little brother, this old man knows his mistake. As long as you promise not to kill me, I promise not to meddle in Huai-yin's affairs. Emo Qingyun's face turned cold in the face of this man's pleas for mercy. He replied, Since you chose to deal with me, then you have to pay the price. As for meddling in Huai-yin's affairs, I'm afraid you won't have the chance. Flaming Bull Meteor Flame Slash. As Emo Qingyun's words fell, he slashed at the man again. The divine flame Heaven Splitter sword immediately soared into the sky. Not only that, but the entire rattan cage also formed a terrifying sea of fire. Following that, one after another, fireballs with threatening aura rained down on this person. Bang! At this moment, the rattan cage was broken by Huai-yin and the others, and they attacked Emo Qingyun together. When Huai-yin and the others attacked, they also looked at the man and asked, Brother Zhou Jia, how's your situation? Brother Huai-yin, I'm seriously injured. I'm afraid I can't help you anymore. Hearing Huai-yin's question, Zhou Jia glanced at Emo Qingyun and hurriedly left. Seeing Zhou Jia's performance, Huai-yin and the others were stunned. They were caught off guard by this unforeseen event. They were very curious about what had happened to Zhou Jia in that moment just now. Seeing Zhou Jia's actions, the others who helped Huai-yin felt uneasy and wanted to retreat. Based on their understanding of Zhou Jia, this guy must have suddenly left because he had discovered that something was wrong. He's already left, but the few of you are still staying. Do you think I can't kill you? Seeing Zhou Jia flee, Emo Qingyun's eyes turned and he scolded the remaining few. Emo Qingyun was playing a psychological game now. He wanted to use this to scare the others away. If the remaining few people sensibly left, it would be much easier to deal with Huai-yin. Under Emo Qingyun's questioning, one person stopped and immediately retreated from the battle circle. He said, Brother Huai-yin, I'm a little worried about Zhou Jia. I'll go and take a look at him first. After that person said that, he turned and left, unwilling to pay any more attention to Huai-yin. Seeing that person withdraw from the battle, the others also withdrew one after another. Soon, only Huai-yin was left. Seeing that the people who helped him had left, Huai-yin's face turned pale, and a sense of regret arose in his heart. Chapter 2582. You really don't have a good character. I just casually said something and they abandoned you. Emo Qingyun sneered and mocked Shan Huai-yin when he saw that everyone had abandoned him. Shan Huai-yin was furious at Emo Qingyun's mockery. His face twitched in anger. However, although he was furious, he could not refute Emo Qingyun. Emo Qingyun's words were harsh, but they were the truth. Since you have nothing to say, let's settle this. Seeing that Shan Huai-yin was silent, Emo Qingyun did not waste any more time and rushed toward him. Fire Armor Breaking Slash. When Emo Qingyun arrived in front of Shanhui Yin, he stabbed with his sword. The sword emitted a dazzling light. Shanhui Yin's expression changed when he saw Emo Qingyun's sword. He quickly retreated. He had already experienced the power of Emo Qingyun's sword. It was not something he could take head-on. Trying to escape? Seeing Shanhui Yin's actions, Emo Qingyun guessed his thoughts and immediately stopped him. Emo Qingyun held his sword with both hands and stabbed it in front of him. The sword immediately emitted a green light. Following that, numerous vines with shocking auras spread out in all directions. In a short while, a huge vine cage formed around Emo Qingyun. As the vine cage formed, Shanhui Yin, who was about to escape, was trapped in the vine cage. "Oh no, I can't escape." Seeing that he was trapped in the vine cage, Shanhui Yin's expression trembled and his face turned pale. He could not escape, so he had to fight Emo Qingyun head-on. This was not a good situation. After a short moment of shock, Shanhui Yin did not dare to be distracted. He quickly blocked Emo Qingyun's sword radiance. Yin Mountain Phantom Sacred Body. Under Emo Qingyun's powerful attack, Shanhui Yin did not dare to hold back and activated his sacred body. As Shanhui Yin activated his sacred body, the aura he exuded immediately turned cold. At the same time, Shanhui Yin punched forward, releasing a powerful burst of saint power. This burst of saint power turned into a huge black mountain and blocked in front of Shanhui Yin. When the huge black mountain appeared, the flaming sword radiance hit it. There was a loud explosion. Crack, crack, crack. Then, a huge crack appeared on the huge black mountain's body. In a short while, the flaming sword radiance penetrated the huge black mountain and hit Shanhui Yin's body. Shanhui Yin's face paled after being hit by the flaming sword radiance. Then, he looked at Emo Qingyun with even more shock and fear in his eyes. He truly did not expect that Emo Qingyun's strength was actually so formidable, making him completely unable to resist. A saintly body. This guy has a saintly body. I underestimated him. I underestimated Shanhui Yin. Emo Qingyun was shocked when he realized that Shanhui Yin also had a sacred body. He did not expect Shanhui Yin to hide his sacred body so well and keep such a trump card. This guy was really patient. Although they are both sacred bodies, Shanhui Yin's sacred body is not very powerful. Emo Qingyun calmed down after suppressing the shock in his heart. He had figured out the strength of Shanhui Yin's sacred body. Shanhui Yin's sacred body did not give him as much pressure as Lang Yen and Yen Xen. In that case, his saint body should be very ordinary and not a very powerful saint body. Emo Qingyun was slightly shocked. His expression turned cold. He said, "If that's the case, let's spar again. Let's see whose sacred body is stronger." Flaming Bull Meteor Flame Cut. As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, his body flashed and attacked Shanhui Yin again. He swung his sword and the sky changed color. A sea of fire immediately formed above the rattan cage, emitting a terrifying heat wave. Then, many flaming fireballs smashed toward Shanhui Yin. Blue Bull Soaring Pole. When the fireballs smashed down, Emo Qingyun stabbed the godly flame sky-piercing sword and performed another superpower. A terrifying saint power exploded from the godly flame sky-piercing sword and filled the rattan cage. Tut tut tut. As the saint power filled the rattan cage, one by one, the wooden dummy sword radiance shot out from below. Shanhui Yin's expression changed when he saw the simultaneous attacks from above and below. His face tensed up. Then, Shanhui Yin panicked and fell into a perilous situation. Bang bang bang. Facing the storm-like attacks, Hui Yin was hit by several fireballs in a moment of carelessness. After being hit by several fireballs, Shanhui Yin's face turned pale, and his injuries worsened. Emo Qingyun did not show mercy. Instead, he increased the intensity of his attack. Evil Summoning Demons Demonic Prison Eye. Emo Qingyun's eyes flashed coldly, and 2 rays of I-force shot toward Shan Huayin. Under the attack of the fireballs and sword rays, Shan Huayin could no longer resist the I-force. Puff, puff, puff. Before Shan Huayin could react, the I-force shot into his head and attacked his primordial spirit. Shan Huayin's body stiffened under the attack of the I-force, as if he was a statue. Since Shan Huayin had given up resisting, the fireballs and sword rays hit him one after another. After being hit by the sword rays and fireballs, Shan Huayin lost his ability to fight and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Don't kill me. I'll do anything as long as you don't kill me." After losing the ability to fight, Shan Huayin's face was ashen, and he immediately begged Emo Qingyun for mercy. Emo Qingyun ignored Shan Huayin's pleas and recalled the battle just now. Who would have thought that using the soaring bull pillar and flaming bull meteor slashed together would increase their power by several times? Emo Qingyun's mind spun, and he came up with a bold conjecture. He silently planned in his heart and said, "If that's the case, I'll use the combination of sword techniques the next time I fight the underworld corpse." Emo Qingyun didn't know that his guess was the true essence of the 9-direction Godly Bull sword technique. The 9-direction Godly Bull sword technique was powerful because its combination of sword techniques would increase its offensive power by several times. After understanding this point, Emo Qingyun looked towards the shade of the Chinese scholar tree. "I'm in a bad situation right now. I need some strong helpers." Looking at the shade of the pagoda tree, Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. He had a plan. "This guy isn't weak. If I can subdue him, he'll be of great help to me." With that thought, Emo Qingyun put on a cold expression and said, "I can spare your life if you open your sea of consciousness and let me plant a soul brand in your primordial spirit." Emo Qingyun stood indifferently on the spot and waited for Shan Huayin's reply. Chapter 2583. Although Shan Huayin was very resistant to Emo Qingyun's request, he still agreed in the end. He knew that if he didn't agree, death would be the only thing that awaited him. After a while, Emo Qingyun planted a soul brand in Shan Huayin's primordial spirit. "You can go back now." After subduing Shan Huayin, Emo Qingyun instructed him and returned to the Divine Light residence. Shan Huayin was severely injured and needed to go back to recuperate. Hence, it was useless for him to stay. Furthermore, Emo Qingyun didn't want anyone to know that Shan Huayin had already submitted to him. "Yes." After hearing Emo Qingyun's instructions, Shan Huayin responded and left. After settling Shan Huayin's matter, Emo Qingyun returned to the Divine Light residence and immersed himself in cultivation. In a large hall in the Divine Light residence. "I've comprehended the Raging Bull's flame sword technique. It's time to cultivate a new sword technique." Emo Qingyun sat cross-legged on the ground with a pensive expression on his face. He was considering the sword art he would cultivate next. Emo Qingyun thought to himself, "The sword techniques that I've mastered so far are still lacking in terms of attack. I have to choose a sword technique with a strong attack." Emo Qingyun immediately made up his mind. He decided to cultivate the Raging Bull sword technique first. Just like the other sword techniques, the Raging Bull sword technique also had 4 sword moves. They were the Raging Bull Sky Shattering Slash, Raging Bull Sky Piercing Slash, and Raging Bull Sky Piercing Sword Formation. Emo Qingyun studied the sword technique and had a rough understanding of the sword technique's cultivation method. Then, he didn't hesitate and began to practice the Raging Bull sword technique. As Emo Qingyun practiced the sword technique, a sharp golden light burst out from his body. The golden light burst out and poured into the Raging Bull Sky Shattering Slash, causing the Raging Bull Sky Shattering Slash to shine brightly. Raging Bull Sky Shattering Slash. Emo Qingyun turned around and brandished the Divine Flame Heaven-Splitting Sword in his hand. As Emo Qingyun swung his sword, a shocking Gengjin Saint power blasted out from the heaven-splitting Divine Flame Sword. The Gungjin Saint Power burst out and turned into a huge bull's head, slamming violently into the air. Under the impact of the golden bull head, the two horns on its head immediately blossomed with a dazzling light. At this moment, the two golden horns were like two sharp golden swords. Crack, 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 under the bombardment of the golden horns, the space immediately shattered, and two huge holes appeared. Emo Qingyun immediately became surprised when he saw this. He was overjoyed and said, "As expected of the metal sword technique. As expected of the sword technique with the greatest offensive power. Just this strike alone can cripple Shan Huiyan." After this discovery, Emo Qingyun no longer hesitated and put in even more effort into his training. Next, as Emo Qingyun continued to comprehend, he also comprehended the remaining sword technique. As he comprehended more and more sword techniques, Emo Qingyun had a strange feeling in his heart. He discovered that every slash of his sword contained a kind of wondrous concept. Not only that, but the sword techniques that he had comprehended before also seemed to have become blurry. How strange! Looking at the situation on his body, Emo Qingyun frowned and had a strong feeling of confusion. He guessed, if this goes on, won't I have to forget all the sword techniques after I've learned all 9 sword techniques? As this thought came to mind, Emo Qingyun was puzzled and looked forward to the complete 9-direction Godly Bull sword technique even more. At this moment, just as Emo Qingyun was looking forward to it, the sky gradually darkened. Forget it, let's talk about comprehending the sword technique later. It's time to welcome the underworld in Holy Corp. As this thought came to mind, Emo Qingyun walked out of the hall and waited for the underworld in Holy Corpse to arrive. When Emo Qingyun walked out of the hall, Luo Jian and the others were already waiting for him. After a day of recuperation, the saint power that they had consumed previously had already recovered. After knowing the situation of Luo Jian and the others, Emo Qingyun nodded with satisfaction and looked at Huai Yin's light divine residence. Huai Yin's injuries aren't light. After a day of cultivation, I wonder if his injuries have healed? Under Emo Qingyun's gaze, Huai Yin walked out of the light divine residence. His face was still a little pale. Looking at Huai Yin's appearance, his injuries were most likely not healed. However, although his injuries had not healed, it should not be difficult for him to resist the underworld in Holy Corpse. After knowing Huai Yin's situation, Emo Qingyun retracted his gaze and looked in the direction of the underworld in Holy Corpse. Under Emo Qingyun's gaze, the ferocious-looking underworld in Holy Corpse quickly rushed towards the light divine residence. After a while, the underworld in Holy Corpse arrived outside the light divine residence and launched an attack. Bang bang bang, under the attacks of the underworld in Holy Corpse, a series of deafening sounds came from outside the light divine residence. Looking at the underworld in Holy Corpse outside the light divine residence, Emo Qingyun did not want to continue watching. He immediately said to Luo Jian and the others, "Let's not continue watching. Let's get rid of these guys." Emo Qingyun threw out a sentence and flew out, charging towards the underworld in Holy Corp. Emo Qingyun's figure flashed a few times, and he arrived in front of the underworld in Holy Corpse and launched an attack on them. Golden Bull Sky Collapsing Strike. Emo Qingyun clenched his right hand, and a flaming longsword appeared in his hand. He swung it at the underworld in Holy Corp. Under the swing of Emo Qingyun's sword, a surge of astonishing Gung metal saint power erupted from the heaven-piercing divine flame sword. The Gung metal saint power erupted and turned into a giant bull's head, crashing towards the underworld in Holy Corp. Puft, puft, puft. Under the impact of the golden bull's head, some of the underworld in Holy Corpse's bodies were instantly pierced through by the bull's horns. In just one exchange, several underworld in Holy Corpses were crippled, and they lost the ability to attack again. Emo Qingyun's performance immediately attracted the attention of the others, and they looked at him in a different light. This kid wants a new sword technique. It seems like he hid some of his strength when he fought against the underworld in Holy Corpse yesterday. If that's the case, he already has 4 sword technique. Not 4, but 5. Don't forget that the underworld bull soul extinguishing sword technique is here. With his strength, it's not a good thing for him to have 5 sword technique. My sword seed technique is not a good thing. I'm sure those guys in front will be interested in him. While they were talking, they looked at the light divine residence at the front. Like the others, Shanhui Yin was shocked when he saw Mo Qingyun's performance. I didn't expect Master to have a metal elemental sword technique. It seems like I was too rash. Shanhui Yin's reverence for Mo Qingyun immediately intensified when he thought of this. Chapter 2584. If Master obtains the Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword Art, wouldn't he have 5 sword techniques? This thought flashed through Shanhui Yin's mind as he looked at a dilapidated palace. The Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword Art was an open secret in that palace. It wouldn't be difficult for Mo Qingyun to obtain it. This way, even though Mo Qingyun only had 4 sword techniques, it was equivalent to 5 sword technique. When he found an opportunity, he would make a trip to the dilapidated palace and obtain the Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword Art. Shanhui Yin watched in awe as Mo Qingyun continuously brandished his divine flame sky-splitting sword and bombarded the surrounding underworld in sacred corpses. As Mo Qingyun continued to brandish his sword, the sword techniques he executed slowly changed. The sword techniques he executed were no longer restricted to the sword technique. Instead, they became more mysterious. At the same time, the power of the sword techniques he executed also strengthened little by little. Seeing such a change, Mo Qingyun was immediately delighted. He revealed an expectant expression and said, "Although the moves are becoming more and more blurry, the power displayed by each sword move is becoming stronger and stronger." Kill, kill, kill. Mo Qingyun's attacks started to become sharper as he watched his sword techniques transform. As Mo Qingyun continued to hone his techniques, the power contained within his sword techniques started to increase. The power of the sword techniques that contain 2 types of power is about 30% stronger than the power of one type. Mo Qingyun started to calculate when he saw the power of his sword techniques. In that case, if the sword techniques contain 9 types of power, the power should increase by 3 times. As Mo Qingyun thought about this, he started to look forward to his comprehension of the sword techniques even more. Furthermore, Mo Qingyun also discovered that the severely injured underworld in sacred corpses were recovering at a much slower rate. Since the underworld in sacred corpses couldn't recover, the pressure on Mo Qingyun lessened and the number of underworld in sacred corpses around him decreased. Before long, the quasi-universe grade underworld in sacred corpses noticed Mo Qingyun's astonishing performance. Roar! A quasi-universe grade underworld in sacred corpse raised its head and roared furiously before pouncing towards Mo Qingyun. As the quasi-universe grade underworld in sacred corpse flew, a mysterious, sinister power erupted from its body. When this power erupted, it shrouded Mo Qingyun and suppressed the radiance of the light divine palace. Dark underworld tiger. After suppressing the radiance of the divine palace, the quasi-universe grade underworld in sacred corpse once again attacked Mo Qingyun. An underworld in sacred corpse's body was formed. Underworld in sacred corpse dark's underworld in sacred corpse as corpse's body. Its bodies is underworld in sacred corpse ses underworld's underworld in s's s underworld sts underworld in god s as it s's as tsbs divine underworld yin's god. Mo Qingyun's expression turned solemn as he faced the dark underworld tiger's attack. He raised the divine sky-splitter sword in front of him. Then, Mo Qingyun drew a line across the sword with his finger, leaving behind a trail of blood. After absorbing Mo Qingyun's blood, the divine skysplitter sword emitted a radiance that immediately became stronger. Then, a berserk green sacred power erupted from the divine skysplitter sword. In a short moment, this green sacred power enveloped an area within a 10-mile radius. The green sacred power shrouded this area and transformed into a mysterious array formation that attacked all living things within it. PFFF, streaks of dark green sword light shot towards the void of the array formation like a green dragon. The dark underworld tiger, which had concealed itself, was quickly forced to reveal itself under the onslaught of the dark green sword light. The concealment of the underworld sacred corpse has been broken by the divine skysplitter sword formation. Emo Qingyun's face lit up when he saw that the dark underworld tiger had nowhere to hide. He was pleasantly surprised by this situation. He had just comprehended the divine skysplitter sword formation not long ago and had yet to fully test its might. Therefore, he had wanted to fully test its might while fighting the quasi-universal underworld sacred corp. What he had not expected was that the divine skysplitter sword formation would actually be able to restrain the dark underworld tiger. The corners of Emo Qingyun's mouth curled up slightly when he saw the dark underworld tiger reveal itself. The dark underworld tiger can't conceal itself, so it won't be able to launch a sneak attack on me. Fighting the quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse will greatly reduce the pressure on me. Emo Qingyun retracted his gaze and looked at the dark underworld sacred corpse before brandishing his divine skysplitter sword. As Emo Qingyun brandished his sword, 3 distinct auras emanated from the divine skysplitter sword. Then, a 3-colored sword light flew out and slashed at the dark underworld sacred corpse. Sky-burying monument. The dark underworld sacred corpse did not retreat in the face of Emo Qingyun's sword. Instead, he immediately put his palms together and gathered his sacred power. Under the attack of the dark nether saint corpse, a gust of cold and eerie saint power quickly gathered in his palm. This sacred power converged and transformed into a black tombstone that blocked the quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse's path. Dang! 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 Streaks of dark green sword light blasted against the black tombstone, creating a series of crisp clangs. When these clangs were heard, the surface of the black tombstone was blasted open. However, although the black tombstone had been blasted open, it was not destroyed by the green sword light. The quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse is indeed not to be underestimated. Emo Qingyun lamented when he saw that his sword technique had not caused any damage to the dark underworld sacred corpse. However, Emo Qingyun did not lose his fighting spirit. Instead, his fighting spirit intensified. This is good as well. The stronger you are, the more I can hone my sword technique. Emo Qingyun muttered to himself before brandishing his divine flame sky-breaking sword and attacking the dark underworld sacred corpse. Emo Qingyun's sword light became fiercer and fiercer, forcing the quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse to defend against it. At the moment, Emo Qingyun was like a hedgehog that constantly slashed out streaks of sword light. Although the dark underworld sacred corpse was not injured in the face of Emo Qingyun's attacks, it was still flustered. For a moment, it was in a stalemate with Emo Qingyun. Whoever could break this stalemate would obtain the final victory. However, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Emo Qingyun would not be able to maintain this stalemate for long. Although he now had the initiative and was suppressing the quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse, he was consuming a lot of energy. If this dragged on for too long, he would run out of sacred power and the quasi-universal underworld sacred corpse would turn the tables. I can't let it resolve this situation. I have to do everything I can to suppress it. Emo Qingyun's expression tensed up as he understood the situation he was in. Thanks to Emo Qingyun's constant encouragement, his attacks became faster and faster and his sacred power was being consumed faster and faster. Gradually, the pressure he was under increased as the intensity of this battle increased. Chapter 2585. As time passed, the pressure on Emo Chingyun increased. Fortunately, as his comprehension of the sword moves increased, the power of his sword moves also increased. With such an improvement, he was barely able to maintain this delicate balance. Otherwise, he would have run away with his tail between his legs when the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse counterattacked. "Kid, you have revealed your true intentions." The quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse smirked when it saw the frequency of Emo Chingyun's attacks getting slower. As it spoke, it punched out with both its fists and blocked Emo Chingyun's attack. After blocking Emo Chingyun's new round of attacks, it rushed towards Emo Chingyun and launched a counterattack against Emo Chingyun. The quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse turned into a streak of black light and arrived in front of Emo Chingyun in a flash. Mad Corpse Phantom Claw. When it arrived in front of Emo Chingyun, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse bent its hands into claws and clawed at Emo Chingyun. As the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse clawed at Emo Chingyun, sinister, cold claw shadows sealed off his escape route. At the moment, Emo Chingyun felt as though he was being surrounded by claw shadows. Nebula Sacred Robe. Upon seeing this, Emo Chingyun didn't dare hold back anymore. Thus, he took out another Nebula Sacred Robe. Then, a light blue Nebula Sacred Robe appeared around his body. After taking out the Nebula Sacred Robe, Emo Chingyun brandished his Divine Flame Sky Splitter and slashed forward. As Emo Chingyun brandished his sword, the cold, imposing palm shadows were scattered one after another. Although he scattered a portion of the claw shadows, there were still some that landed on Emo Chingyun's back. Bam! 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 Emo Chingyun's body was sent flying after being bombarded by several palm shadows. Immediately, the blood in his body surged. Emo Chingyun suppressed the surging energy and blood in his body. He did not dare to hesitate and immediately retreated into the Divine Radiance Palace. Although his strength had increased significantly, he was still no match for the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse. Trying to escape? Upon seeing Emo Chingyun's actions, the quasi-universal dark underworld sacred corpse snorted and attacked Emo Chingyun. The quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse appeared in front of Emo Chingyun in a flash and blocked his path. The Door of Death. Seeing this scene, Emo Chingyun did not dare to hold back any longer and immediately slapped out a palm at the dark underworld holy corpse. As Emo Chingyun waved his hand, a gloomy black door of light shot out of his palm. Boom! The gate of death expanded rapidly, trapping the Ean underworld saint corpse inside in an instant. After imprisoning the underworld Ean's sacred corpse, Emo Chingyun's figure flashed and he bypassed the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse. Baleful Ean's spirit capturing claw. As the quasi-universe-grade underworld Ean's sacred corpse was trapped inside the gate of death, it clawed at Emo Chingyun again. As it clawed, an even stronger claw shadow blasted out of its palm. The speed of this claw shadow was so fast that it reached Emo Chingyun in the blink of an eye. Emo Chingyun had no time to dodge. "I can't dodge it. I can only take it head-on." Looking at the approaching claw shadow, Emo Chingyun immediately raised his Divine Flame Heaven-cleaving sword to block the claw shadow. Soon, the claw shadow collided with the Divine Flame Sky Splitter sword and a terrifying power erupted. Dang! A loud sound was heard before the Divine Flame Sky Splitter sword dissipated and turned into a ball of flame energy. The claw shadow's attack did not diminish after destroying the Divine Flame Sky Splitter sword. Instead, it continued to claw at Emo Chingyun's throat. Emo Chingyun was startled when he saw this. He immediately raised his hand and waved it in front of him. As Emo Chingyun waved his hand, a huge skeletal cow appeared in front of him. Ka. The skeletal cow had just appeared when it was hit by the claw shadow and turned into a ball of powder. Although the skeletal cow could not block the overbearing attack of the claw shadow, it had bought Emo Qingyun some time. Emo Qingyun's figure flickered a few times before he returned to the light divine palace with a lingering fear on his face. Fortunately, his reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, he would have been in danger. When Emo Qingyun returned to the light divine palace, the battle situation on his side attracted the attention of others. Could the light robe around that kid be the nebulous sacred cloth? Nebula sacred cloth? That's impossible, right? He needs to condense 10,000 Saint Power star clusters to awaken the nebula sacred cloth. Is his talent that high? Even if he condenses 10,000 Saint Power star clusters, he can only awaken one nebula sacred cloth. How could he have two? Strange. This kid is too strange. He must have a huge secret on him. While the others were shocked by Emo Qingyun's performance, they also became interested in him. Even the people living in the light divine palaces at the front were interested in Emo Qingyun. Emo Qingyun did not have time to care about the thoughts of the people beside him. He was currently calculating in his mind. Given my current strength, I can barely contend with the quasi-universe grade underworld Sacred Corp. However, I need to comprehend at least 7 sword techniques if I want to fight it without losing. Emo Qingyun decided not to go out anymore as he thought about it. Instead, he waited silently for the sky to brighten up. He was currently far from being a match for the quasi-universe grade underworld Sacred Corps. It would be unwise to continue fighting it head-on. It wouldn't be too late for him to continue the battle after he had comprehended a few more sword technique. As Emo Qingyun was not going out, the quasi-universe grade underworld Sacred Corps could not do anything to Emo Qingyun even though it was furious. With the help of the light divine palaces, Emo Qingyun might not be able to defeat it, but he could still contend with it and protect himself. Time passed bit by bit. Gradually, the sky brightened and the underworld Sacred Corps retreated slowly. As the underworld Sacred Corps retreated, Emo Qingyun immediately went into seclusion to cultivate and comprehend the remaining sword technique. Just like before, the more sword techniques he comprehended, the more vague his understanding of the sword techniques became. Although Emo Qingyun didn't understand this situation, he didn't care at all. He had discovered that the sword lights he brandished were even more mysterious and their power had increased significantly. After some time, Huayin's arrival interrupted Emo Qingyun's cultivation. Huayin, why are you looking for me in such a hurry? Is there something urgent? After coming out of his cultivation, Emo Qingyun asked Huayin about the purpose of his visit. Huayin looked nervous when he heard Emo Qingyun's question. Master, it seems like you don't know that the Dark Bull Soul extinguishing sword technique is in that abandoned hall. That's why I came to remind you. What? The Dark Bull Soul extinguishing sword technique is in that abandoned hall? Emo Qingyun was stunned when he heard this news from Huayin. It had to be said that this news was really unexpected for him. Chapter 2586. Let's go over and take a look. Emo Qingyun didn't want to waste any time after learning about the Dark Ox Soul extinguishing sword art from Shan Huayin. Once he obtained the Dark Ox Soul extinguishing sword art, he would be able to gather all 9 sword techniques of the 9-directional divine ox sword art. In the face of such temptation, even with Emo Qingyun's mental state, he was unable to remain indifferent. Shan Huayin didn't dare delay when he heard Emo Qingyun's order. He immediately led the way. Soon, Emo Qingyun and the others arrived outside the ancient hall and prepared to enter to explore. Stop right there. At this moment, a cold shout came from behind them. Emo Qingyun saw a few people behind the voice and quickly walked over. Chu Shi, it's him. Why is he here? Seeing the people in front of him, Huayin looked at the person at the very front with respect. Emo Qingyun couldn't help but take a few more glances at Chu Shi when he noticed Shan Huayin's abnormal behavior. This fellow must be extraordinary if he could make Shan Huayin so afraid. Master, Chu Shi is the person who occupies the 5th Radiant Divine Palace. His brother, Chu Chen, occupies the 1st Radiant Divine Palace. Shan Huiyan had a fearful expression on his face as he looked at Chu Shi before whispering to Emo Qingyun, Chu Shi isn't that strong. He's not much stronger than me. However, Chu Chen's strength is extremely terrifying. He might be comparable to a universe-grade powerhouse. He's not someone we can provoke. Emo Qingyun nodded when he heard Shan Huiyan's reminder. He was very clear about this. When the underworld Yin Sacred Corpse had attacked, it had never attacked the first 3 Radiant Divine Palaces. This was enough to prove how strong they were. Chu Chen's strength was comparable to a universe-grade powerhouse, so it wasn't strange that he occupied the 1st Radiant Divine Palace. Is something the matter? Emo Qingyun wasn't afraid as he looked at Chu Shi. Under Emo Qingyun's questioning, Chu Shi evilly smiled and said, This ancient temple is mine. If you want the Dark Ox Soul Annihilation sword art inside, you must use other sword arts to trade for it. So this is the reason. Hearing Chu Shi's words, Emo Qingyun knew what he was thinking. Then, he looked at Chu Shi with disdain. Previously, Shan Huiyan and the others also harbored the same thoughts, but in the end, they were taught a lesson by him. Of course, Chu Shi's capital was much stronger than Huiyan's. However, this did not mean that Emo Qingyun would agree to his request. And if I don't agree? Emo Qingyun looked at Chu Shi with an indifferent expression. He was not afraid at all. Seeing Emo Qingyun's attitude, Chu Shi smugly smiled. He sat down at the entrance of the ancient temple and said, If that's the case, then don't even think about obtaining the Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword art. Seeing Chu Shi's action, Emo Qingyun didn't say much. He directly turned around and said, Let's go back. Emo Qingyun directly lifted his foot and left after saying this. He wasn't in a hurry to confront Chu Shi. It wasn't appropriate for him to make too many enemies now. He still needed to conceal his strength and bide his time. As for the Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword art, it had always been here. Emo Qingyun would get it sooner or later. Hearing Emo Qingyun's order, Huiyan hurriedly followed and returned to the Light Divine Palace. Boss Chu Shi, why did you let that kid leave? We could have just captured him. Looking at Emo Qingyun's back, a person beside Chu Shi asked in confusion. Chu Shi looked at the 2nd and 3rd Light Divine Palaces and said, Su Zhe and Wu En will not allow us to take action. They will not allow Big Brother to obtain more sword arts and break the balance between them. Then what should we do? Yes, if that's the case, wouldn't it be a waste of effort for us to occupy the ancient hall? Everyone was puzzled when they heard Chu Shi's words. They didn't understand Chu Shi's intention. Chu Shi's eyes lit up as he said, Big Brother is trying to break through to the half-step universe grade. If he succeeds, he won't have to fear Su Zhe and Wu En anymore. Then we can take action. Hearing this, several people nodded in agreement with Chu Shi's words. Chu Shi glanced at the ancient hall behind him and grinned. As for occupying this ancient hall, it is naturally to suppress that kid's improvement. If we let him obtain the Dark Ox Soul Vanquishing Sword art and let his strength soar, he will become a huge threat to us. After listening to Chu Shi's explanation, several people showed a look of understanding and nodded in agreement. While they agreed, they were also puzzled. In that case, why don't we just kill him? It will be easier to get rid of all future troubles. Stupid. Hearing this person's suggestion, Chu Shi reprimanded him and said, If we kill that brat, won't the sword arts on him disappear as well? We are stupid. The few of them hurriedly admitted their mistake when they heard Chu Shi's reprimand. The confusion in their hearts was resolved. Under the watchful eyes of Chu Shi and the others, Emo Qingyun returned to the Radiance Divine Palace and prepared to continue comprehending the sword art. After returning to the Light Divine Residence, Luo Jian said solemnly, Master, based on the behavior of those people, I'm afraid they won't let your sword techniques go. What can they do if they don't let it go? My sword techniques are not to be coveted. Emo Qingyun didn't care about Luo Jian's worries. He walked directly into the hall and said, "Don't bother about those people. Let's make the best use of our time to cultivate and improve our strength." After instructing Luo Jian and the others, Emo Qingyun began to comprehend the sword techniques and strive to improve his strength as quickly as possible. Seeing that Emo Qingyun was immersed in cultivation, Luo Jian and the others didn't say anything else and began to cultivate one after another. Time always passed very quickly during cultivation. In the blink of an eye, several hours had passed. At this moment, a mysterious force appeared around Emo Qingyun. This force seemed invisible, but it was real and exuded an indestructible aura. Sensing the force outside his body, Emo Qingyun was immediately overjoyed. He withdrew from his cultivation and said in surprise, "Sword intent. I only comprehended 6 sword techniques, but I actually condensed sword intent." The formation of sword intent was the result of cultivating the 9-direction divine bull sword technique to the extreme. Normally, it would only appear when one comprehended 9 sword technique. Who would have thought that Emo Qingyun would successfully condense sword intent after comprehending only 6 sword technique? Show! Emo Qingyun's heart stirred. He controlled the sword intent and made it appear. Then, a violent sword-shaped mist appeared in front of Emo Qingyun. As the sword intent appeared, it exuded a fierce aura as if it could shatter heaven and earth. Go! After making the sword intent appear, Emo Qingyun controlled it and blasted it toward the void not far away. The sword intent turned into a stream of light and blasted into the void domineeringly, directly shattering the space. Chapter 2587. What a powerful sword intent! Emo Qingyun couldn't help but wonder when he saw the power of the sword intent. The sword intent is only in its initial form, but its power is already comparable to a quasi-universe grade powerhouse's attack. If I complete the 9-directional godly bull sword technique, won't I be able to contend against a universe grade powerhouse? The more Emo Qingyun thought about it, the more excited he became. His heartbeat also became faster. With this thought in mind, Emo Qingyun once again immersed himself in cultivation and continued to comprehend other sword technique. As Emo Qingyun comprehended the sword techniques, the power of the sword intent outside his body began to grow stronger. As Emo Qingyun comprehended the sword techniques, the sky gradually darkened and the underworld sacred corpse arrived once again. Emo Qingyun stopped cultivating and walked out of the hall when he sensed the underworld sacred corpse's arrival. Emo Qingyun had just walked out of the hall when he saw the quasi-sage underworld sacred corpse arrive with the underworld sacred corpse. It seemed like it was determined to fight Emo Qingyun to the death. It had to fight to the death with Emo Qingyun. It seems like I won't be able to practice my sword techniques if I don't get rid of you. Emo Qingyun's face gradually turned cold as he looked at the quasi-sage underworld sacred corpse outside his residence. He took the initiative to charge towards it and said, "In that case, I'll fight with you and test the power of the sword intent." Roar! Upon seeing Emo Qingyun approach, the surrounding underworld sacred corpses roared and closed in on Emo Qingyun. When these dark underworld holy corpses approached, a faintly discernible mist appeared around Emo Qingyun. Clang clang clang. The mist turned into streaks of sword intent that blasted towards the surrounding underworld sacred corpses and sent them flying in the blink of an eye. In just one exchange, all the ordinary underworld sacred corpses were crippled except for the quasi-universe grade underworld sacred corpse. Back off! Upon seeing this, the quasi-universe grade underworld sacred corpse bellowed and charged towards Emo Qingyun. When it charged towards Emo Qingyun, it was also in a bad situation, and was thrown into confusion by the sword force. The sword energy is so powerful! Emo Qingyun was overjoyed when he saw this. Battle intent rose in his heart as he said, "If that's the case, I might be able to fight it." Following that, Mo Qingyun did not retreat. Instead, he took the initiative to charge towards the dark Nether Saint Court. After the battle just now, Mo Qingyun had already discovered how the sword aura attacked. When he used his divine ability to fight, it was a form of subjective consciousness. However, the sword aura's attack was passive. In other words, the energy swords did not need Mo Qingyun to control them. They would attack on their own. Most importantly, the attack from the sword force would not consume Mo Qingyun's saint energy. In other words, Mo Qingyun's current battle was equivalent to having a quasi-universe-grade powerhouse assisting him. Azure Wood Divine Bull Formation. When he arrived in front of the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse, Mo Qingyun raised his Divine Flame Sky Splitter and immediately executed a sword technique. When Mo Qingyun raised his sword, a terrifying wave of saint energy erupted from the Divine Flame Sky Splitter. Then, a 5-kilometer area was enveloped by a sword array. Sacred Brilliance Mystic Ability ignited. Nebula Sacred Garment. Lightning Fire Berserk Dragon Sacred Body. Mo Qingyun did not dare respond to the attack of the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corp. Thus, he immediately executed all his defensive mystic abilities. Thanks to the support of these defensive mystic abilities, his defensive capabilities were raised to the maximum. After increasing his defensive capabilities, Mo Qingyun did not hesitate any longer. He immediately brandished his sword and slashed at the underworld Een Sacred Corp. Light Shadow Thrust. Mo Qingyun stabbed out with his sword. The Divine Flame Sky Splitter immediately glowed brightly and blasted out streaks of sword light. These streaks of sword light blasted out and slashed at the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse, blocking its attack immediately. Not only that, but the silver sword light also cut a part of the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse's body. After being bombarded by the silver sword light, even the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse's body was burned. "How dare you hurt me? You must have a death wish." The quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse was enraged when it saw that Mo Qingyun's attack had injured it. Immediately, its attacks became frantic as it continuously brandished its claws at Mo Qingyun. As it attacked, numerous imposing claw shadows enveloped Mo Qingyun. However, before those claw shadows could get close, they were scattered by the sword intent and were unable to cause any harm to Mo Qingyun. Seeing this scene, Mo Qingyun was immediately overjoyed. He revealed an excited expression and said, "Since your attack can't hurt me, then I won't hold back." As soon as Mo Qingyun said that, he frantically brandished his Divine Flame Sky Splitter sword and slashed out streaks of mysterious sword light. The quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse was thrown into disarray by Mo Qingyun's sword light and it was beaten passively. For a moment it was in a situation where it was being beaten up by Mo Qingyun. Unfortunately, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse's body is too strong. My attacks cannot seriously injure it. Luo Yunyang watched as his attacks landed on the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse without causing any fatal injuries. Mo Qingyun couldn't help but sigh. After all, his cultivation base was still too low. If his cultivation base had increased, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse before him would have been crippled by his attack. Although I can't cripple you, it's not a bad thing to have a target like you as practice. Mo Qingyun was in a much better mood when he thought of this. Thus, he didn't have to hold back when he attacked. Then, the quasi-universe-grade underworld Een Sacred Corpse became a live target under Mo Qingyun's frenzied attack. As Mo Qingyun continued to attack, his mastery of the various sword techniques became increasingly proficient. Suddenly, Mo Qingyun's gaze landed on the ancient hall not too far away. Now that the underworld Een Sacred Corpse is attacking, Chu Shi will definitely not be able to guard the ancient hall. Perhaps this is a good opportunity for me to make my move. With this thought in mind, Mo Qingyun decided to give it a try. He immediately flew towards the ancient palace. The underworld Yin's sacred corpse, which had been beaten up by him, took the opportunity to slip away. It didn't dare cause trouble for Mo Qingyun again. It could tell that the small ant in front of it was no longer someone it could afford to provoke. As Mo Qingyun's body flashed, waves of terrifying sword light revolved around him. Any underworld Yin's sacred corpse that approached him would be crippled by the tyrannical sword light. Then, wherever Mo Qingyun passed, it would become a vacuum. When they discovered Mo Qingyun's terrifying strength, all the underworld Yin's sacred corpses retreated, as if they were afraid of Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun was happy to see such a situation, as it would save him a lot of trouble. Mo Qingyun's figure flickered a few times before he arrived at the ancient hall and began to search for the dark bull soul extinguishing sword technique. "Kid, how dare you!" Chu Shi was enraged when he saw Mo Qingyun's actions and roared at Mo Qingyun. Then, he left the radiant spiritual palace and flew towards the ancient hall. Chapter 2588. Meteor Falling Finger. Chu Shi's figure flashed a few times, and he arrived in front of Mo Qingyun, pointing a finger at Mo Qingyun. Specks of dazzling starlight bloomed on Chu Shi's hand, turning into streaks of silver finger light. Streaks of finger light blasted out like falling meteors, flying toward Mo Qingyun. "Humph. Looks like if I don't teach you a lesson, you'll really think I'm afraid of you." Seeing Chu Shi's action, Mo Qingyun's face turned cold, emitting a strong anger. This guy called Chu Shi had targeted him time and time again. He was really too much. If he did not teach him a lesson, he would probably take a mile after taking an inch. Break. Under Mo Qingyun's angry roar, streaks of tyrannical aura appeared outside his body. When these aura appeared, they turned into the shape of swords, meeting those descending finger lights. Puff puff puff. Facing the bombardment of the sword aura, the finger lights were instantly defeated, not causing any damage to Mo Qingyun. When the sword aura scattered the finger lights, Mo Qingyun did not hesitate and immediately launched a counterattack at Chu Shi. Evil Summoning Demon Prison Eye. Two streaks of eerie eye power blasted out from Mo Qingyun's eyes, instantly arriving in front of Chu Shi. Before Chu Shi could react, he was blasted by the eye power, and his soul immediately trembled. Then, his body stiffened in midair as if he was petrified. Fierce bull sky piercing thorn. Mo Qingyun's attack succeeded, and he did not show mercy, slashing out at Chu Shi again. With a swing of the sword, golden light on the divine flame sky piercing sword shone brightly, slashing out a swift and fierce sword light. In just a moment, the sword light cut through the sky and arrived in front of Chu Shi. At this time, Chu Shi's consciousness recovered, and his face revealed a look of shock. He did not expect that in just one exchange, he would be crushed by Mo Qingyun. Moonet Illusion Shield. Looking at the sword light approaching rapidly, Chu Shi did not dare to be the slightest bit careless, and immediately executed a divine ability to resist. Chu Shi put two fingers together, silver light blossoming from his fingers as he quickly pointed in front of him. Soon, the light on his finger grew stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, the finger light transformed into a light shield, enveloping Chu Shi. Poochie! The sword light slammed into the light shield, and the void trembled. It was as if a waterfall had been split apart by a knife. As the void trembled, the sword light penetrated the light shield and landed on Chu Shi's body. Chi-la! Chu Shi's chest was hit directly by the sword radiance, and a bloody wound immediately appeared. At the same time, a sharp sword light pierced through his back. Then, Chu Shi's body began to split into two. How could this be? Seeing such a situation, Chu Shi's expression trembled, and a strong shock arose in his heart. This situation really frightened him quite a bit, making him feel a bone-piercing chill. Emo Qingyun's strength was too strong. He couldn't even block a single move. Run! After witnessing Emo Qingyun's strength, Chu Shi didn't dare to hesitate and immediately fled to his spiritual dwelling. Seeing that Chu Shi was about to escape, Emo Qingyun's gaze turned cold. He waved the divine flame sky-piercing sword again and said, "Humph! It's not that easy to escape. Leave one hand behind before you leave." Emo Qingyun waved the divine flame sky-piercing sword, and a crescent-shaped sword light swept towards Chu Shi with a force that could sweep away thousands of troops. Seeing the sword rapidly approaching, Chu Shi's expression immediately trembled. He hurriedly shouted at the first light spiritual dwelling, "Big brother, save me!" As Chu Shi's words left his mouth, a mysterious force appeared and enveloped Chu Shi. Then, Chu Shi's figure flashed and appeared in the first light spiritual dwelling. Then, Emo Qingyun's sword was easily dodged by Chu Shi. What a powerful move! Emo Qingyun was shocked when he saw that Chu Shi had dodged the sword light. He couldn't help but look at the first light spiritual dwelling and say, "The energy fluctuation just now seems to be the space being manipulated." After this discovery, Emo Qingyun had a new understanding of Chu Chen's strength. Chu Chen's strength couldn't be underestimated since he could occupy the first light spiritual dwelling. "Kid, you're really bold. You even dared to injure my second brother." After bringing Chu Shi into the first light spiritual dwelling, Chu Chen's cold voice rang out. Emo Qingyun wasn't afraid of Chu Chen's dissatisfaction. He replied, "Since your second brother has the intention to hurt others, he should be prepared to be hurt. Those who hurt others will always be hurt. Those who hurt others will always be hurt. I hope you remember your words." Chu Chen smiled coldly when he heard Emo Qingyun's reply. He didn't say anything else. Emo Qingyun's expression turned cold when he saw that Chu Chen didn't say anything else. He frowned and thought to himself, "I injured Chu Shi so badly, but Chu Chen only said a few words to me and didn't attack me directly. It seems like he is at the crucial point of his cultivation." Emo Qingyun understood this and his expression immediately turned grave. He felt a great pressure. Once Chu Chen broke through and his strength increased greatly, Emo Qingyun's situation wouldn't be good. As for stopping the other party from cultivating, Emo Qingyun didn't even think about it. He could see that the first light spiritual dwelling was very intact, and it was impossible to force his way in. As such, the only thing Emo Qingyun could do now was to increase his strength as quickly as possible. "I'll first comprehend the Dark Bull's soul-destroying sword art. When the time comes, I'll deal with whatever comes my way." With that thought in mind, Emo Qingyun walked into the dilapidated ancient hall to comprehend the Dark Bull's soul-destroying sword art. The other people in the light spiritual dwelling were shocked when they saw Emo Qingyun's actions. Emo Qingyun is really strong. He actually injured Chu Shi. What he did may seem impressive, but it's no different from courting death. That's right. Chu Chen doesn't have the heart to care about him now. It'll be over when he comes out of seclusion. While everyone was shocked, he was also worried about Emo Qingyun. In their opinion, although Emo Qingyun's strength was extraordinary, there was a huge gap between him and Chu Chen. Master actually injured Chu Shi. This is going to be troublesome. Shanhua Yin's expression trembled when he saw Emo Qingyun's performance. He was worried. In his opinion, given Emo Qingyun's current strength, he didn't have a high chance of winning against Chu Chen. Emo Qingyun didn't care about what the others thought. He was fully focused on comprehending the sword technique. He wasn't worried that the Dark Underworld Sacred Corpse would be able to hurt him because he had the sword intent protecting his body. As for the quasi-universe grade Dark Underworld Sacred Corpse, their commanding ability wasn't low. After witnessing Emo Qingyun's strength, they had already hidden far away. In their eyes, Emo Qingyun was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Chapter 2589. The night passed quickly. After a night of comprehension, Emo Qingyun had memorized all the cultivation chants of the Dark Bull soul-destroying sword technique. After memorizing the Dark Ox soul-vanquishing sword art's sword technique, Emo Qingyun withdrew from his comprehension and walked out of the dilapidated ancient hall. When Emo Qingyun came out of the ancient palace, he did not return to his Radiance Divine Palace. Instead, he went to the Fifth Radiance Divine Palace. Chu Shi had provoked him time and time again, so he had to fight back and take his Light Divine Palace as interest. The people in the Light Divine Palace were shocked when they saw Emo Qingyun's actions. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to take over Chu Shi's Light Divine Palace? This guy must be crazy. He wants to become enemies with Chu Chen. He won't be happy for long. He'll be dead when Chu Chen comes out of seclusion. There's no need to wait for Chu Chen. I think Fan Ming won't be able to sit still. That's right. He has always coveted the Fifth Light Divine Palace. He's just afraid of Chu Chen's strength. Everyone was shocked and envious when they saw Emo Qingyun's actions, but most of them rejoiced in his misfortune. Emo Qingyun's action of taking over the Fifth Light Divine Palace was admirable and envious. They knew that the complete Sun Bull God vanquishing sword art was in the top 5 Light Divine dwellings. Emo Qingyun had taken over the Fifth Light Divine Palace, which meant that he had obtained the Sun Bull God destroying sword technique. How could they not be jealous? Under everyone's envious gazes, Emo Qingyun entered the Fifth Radiance Divine Palace, intending to seize control of it by force. Kid, how dare you? Chu Shi, who was in the First Light Divine Palace, shouted angrily when he saw Emo Qingyun's actions. He had obtained the Fifth Light Divine Palace with Chu Chen's help, but now it was taken over by Emo Qingyun. This kind of thing was simply a great humiliation to him. More importantly, even though he was furious, he did not dare to take revenge on Emo Qingyun. He had no choice but to let Chu Chen take action. Otherwise, he could not do anything to Emo Qingyun. When Big Brother finishes his cultivation, I'll deal with you slowly. Glancing at Chu Chen beside him, Chu Shi's expression turned for the better as he forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. Just as Chu Shi was suppressing his anger, his blood suddenly surged, and a wisp of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Emo Qingyun had forcibly erased the soul imprint in the Fifth Light Divine Palace. How could my soul imprint be erased so quickly? Chu Shi's face was filled with shock when he sensed that his connection with the Light Divine Palace had been forcibly severed. Emo Qingyun's current performance had once again frightened him. After calming down the shock in his heart, Chu Shi immediately sat down cross-legged to recover the damage to his mind. Inside the Fifth Light Divine Palace. In order to prevent Chu Chen from taking back the mansion, I first comprehended the Sun Bull God destroying sword art. After seizing the Fifth Light Divine Palace, Missouri Qingyun decided to search for the Sun Bull God vanquishing sword art. In his opinion, after he memorized the Sun Bull God vanquishing sword art, he would not be afraid even if Chu Chen took back the mansion. While Emo Qingyun was comprehending the sword art, Shan Huaiyin and the others rushed over to guard the Light Divine Palace for Emo Qingyun. This way, when Emo Qingyun was cultivating, he would be able to prevent random people from disturbing him. Not long after Shan Huaiyin and the others arrived, a muscular man came to the front of the mansion aggressively. This man was the possessor of the Sixth Light Divine Palace and had always coveted the Fifth Light Divine Palace. Although there was only one rank difference between the Sixth and Fifth Light Divine Palace, the difference was like heaven and earth. The Fifth Light Divine Palace had the complete Sun Bull God destroying sword art, while the Sixth Light Divine Palace had an incomplete sword art. Although there was only one move missing, the difference was huge. Since the sword art was incomplete, there was not much difference whether it was missing one move or 2 or 3 moves. Therefore, when he saw that Emo Qingyun had taken the Fifth Light Divine Palace, he could not sit still. Shan Huaiyin asked that kid to come out. The Fifth Light Divine Palace is not a place for him to stay. This man stood in front of the mansion. He used a domineering attitude to point fingers at Huai Yin. Shan Huai Yin's face darkened when he saw the man's actions. He said with some displeasure, "Fan Ming, I advise you not to ask for a rebuff. Return to your sixth light divine palace immediately so that you won't be embarrassed. If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing has happened." Fan Ming smiled contemptuously when he heard Shan Huai Yin's words. His face was full of contempt and disdain. "Humph! You don't have the right to point your finger at me. Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude." Fan Ming glanced at Shan Huai Yin and the others before he rushed into the mansion and shouted, "Since that kid doesn't dare to come out, I'll drag him out and teach him how to behave. Fan Ming, don't you dare. Do it, stop him. Don't let him enter the mansion and disturb the master's cultivation." Shan Huai Yin and the others' faces darkened when they saw Fan Ming's actions. They joined forces and launched an attack. In an instant, waves of late-stage celestial domain-level aura erupted from Shan Huai Yin and the others. Shan Huai Yin and the others no longer hesitated and launched an attack on Fan Ming together. Fan Ming's face darkened when he saw Shan Huai Yin and the others attack. He exuded a chilling aura and shouted, "How dare a bunch of ants try to stop me? Since you all have a death wish, I'll slaughter all of you first before dealing with that kid." Galaxy Prison Shaker Palm. Fan Ming unleashed a terrifying aura the moment he made his move. It was far from what Shan Huai Yin and the others could compare to. Although Fan Ming was domineering, he did have some ability. His cultivation base had already reached the peak celestial domain grade. If he took another step forward, he would be qualified to break through to the universe grade. Of course, it wouldn't be easy to take this step. In any case, the fact that he had occupied the sixth light divine palace was enough to prove that he wasn't weak. Fan Ming struck out with his palm, and a gust of chilling saint power turned into a giant palm shadow. When these palm shadows appeared, they pressed down on Shan Huai Yin and the others at a ghostly speed. Shan Huai Yin and the others didn't dare hesitate in the face of the palm shadows. They hurriedly attacked the palm shadows. Bang! 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 Shan Huai Yin and the others attacked one after another. Terrifying mystic abilities blasted against the palm shadows. However, Shan Huai Yin and the others' obstruction didn't have much of an effect. In a short while, their attacks were defeated and they were sent flying by Fan Ming's palm shadows. Shan Huai Yin and the others spat out mouthfuls of blood after being bombarded by Fan Ming's palm shadows. Their faces were as pale as paper. Then, they looked at Fan Ming with great shock. Fan Ming's strength was actually so strong that they weren't a match for him even when they joined forces. Humph! After repelling Shan Huai Yin and the others with one palm strike, Fan Ming waved his sleeves and walked towards the fifth light divine palace. Chapter 2590. Fan Ming, stop right there. Luo Jian and the others appeared in front of Fan Ming in a flash, blocking his path again. Fan Ming's face darkened when he saw their actions. He shouted angrily, "You ants, do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" Galaxy sun-piercing explosion. Fan Ming took a step forward and clenched his fists tightly. His body spun and turned into a huge fire wheel. When the fire wheel was formed, it spread out in all directions like a huge wave of flames. Bang bang bang, as the wheel of fire swept out, a terrifying explosive force erupted from within. In the face of this explosive force, Luo Jian and the others' faces changed greatly, and they all retreated. However, the fire wheel's attack was too fast. They were swallowed by the fire wheel before they could turn around to escape. Bang bang bang! In a short moment, Luo Jian and the others were sent flying, each of them seriously injured. After being bombarded by Fan Ming, Luo Jian and the others' auras became weak, and they lost the ability to continue fighting. After sending Luo Jian and the others flying again, Fan Ming did not stop and continued to walk towards Emo Qingyun. Shanhui Yin and the others revealed worried expressions when they saw Fan Ming's actions. They blamed themselves strongly. They were really too useless. They couldn't even restrain Fan Ming. Fan Ming arrived outside the hall under the gaze of Luo Jian and the others. He looked at the young man in the hall and said, "Mo Qingyun, you're very calm. You're still in the mood to comprehend the sword technique at this time." Mo Qingyun slowly opened his eyes when he heard Fan Ming's words. He glanced at him and said, "If you don't want to die, get out of here in 10 breaths. You want to kill me? What a joke." Fan Ming did not care about Mo Qingyun's reprimand. He raised his head arrogantly and said, "I don't mind telling you that although I'm in the 6th Light Divine Palace, my strength is not comparable to Chu Shi's. If it weren't for Chu Chen's strength, the 5th Light Divine Palace would have been mine. I'm here to take back what belongs to me. You're the one who should get out." After Fan Ming finished speaking, his figure flashed and pounced towards Mo Qingyun. While flying towards Mo Qingyun, Fan Ming bent her hand into a claw and grabbed at Mo Qingyun's throat. A black claw shadow with a threatening aura, like a tiger's claw, rapidly moved towards Mo Qingyun's throat. Looking at Fan Ming's actions, he seemed to want to cripple Mo Qingyun in one move and was unwilling to waste time with Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun's face darkened when he saw Fan Ming's actions. He shouted, "Looks like if I don't teach you a lesson, you'll really think I'm a pushover." Fan Ming was afraid of Chu Chen's strength and did not dare to snatch the 5th Light Divine Palace from Chu Shi's hands. Now that he had occupied the 5th Radiance Divine Palace, this guy could no longer sit still and immediately jumped out to snatch it. His actions clearly showed that he thought Mo Qingyun was easy to bully and that it was fine to provoke Mo Qingyun. Light Shadow Thrust. In the face of the Claw Shadow's attack, Mo Qingyun clenched his right hand and a long flaming sword appeared in his hand. The long flaming sword was formed and bloomed with dazzling light as it pierced towards Fan Ming. In the process of Mo Qingyun's sword piercing, a terrifying wave of energy appeared outside his body. Then, the energy turned into streaks of sword energy and flew towards Fan Ming domineeringly. In the face of the sword energy, the claw shadow that attacked Mo Qingyun was instantly defeated. The sword energy dispersed the claw shadow, but its attack did not decrease and continued to fly towards Fan Ming. "This guy is so strong." Fan Ming was shocked when he saw Mo Qingyun's performance, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. When he really fought with Mo Qingyun, he realized that he had underestimated Mo Qingyun. He originally thought that Mo Qingyun could defeat Chu Shi, but he was only slightly stronger than Chu Shi. With his strength, it was not difficult for him to deal with Mo Qingyun. He did not expect Mo Qingyun's strength to be so shocking that Chu Shi could not compare to him. After all, Fan Ming was not an ordinary person. He quickly regained his composure and blocked the incoming sword energy. Galaxy Prison Shaker Palm. Fan Ming clenched his fists and placed them in front of his chest as the saint power in his body poured out. Then, Fan Ming took a step forward and blasted out both his fists. As Fan Ming swung his fists, the violent saint power outside his body turned into a huge fist shadow. The fist shadow blasted out and met the sword energy head-on, resisting the attack of the sword energy. Bang! 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 The sword energy collided with the fist shadow and immediately exploded in the air with a loud bang. However, although the fist shadow blocked the sword energy, it did not block the light shadow sword radiance. Streaks of dazzling light shadow sword radiance blasted out from the divine flame sky-splitting sword and flew like a snake. In the blink of an eye, the light shadow sword radiance fell on Fan Ming and wildly destroyed his body. Puff, puff, puff. Hit by the light shadow sword radiance, Fan Ming was immediately seriously injured, and sword marks appeared on his body. At the same time, Fan Ming was also blasted out and fell heavily to the ground. Seeing Fan Ming fly out, Luo Jian and the others were overjoyed and excited. "Master's strength has increased again. I didn't expect Fan Ming to be unable to block Master's sword with his strength. In this case, Master's current strength can probably challenge Chu Chen and the others. Seeing Mo Qingyun's combat strength, Shan Huai-yin and the others were shocked and looked at Mo Qingyun with respect. Under their respectful gazes, Mo Qingyun walked out of the hall and slowly walked toward Fan Ming. Seeing Mo Qingyun approaching him, Fan Ming's expression trembled, and his face was filled with fear. From the previous exchange of blows, he could see that Mo Qingyun was not someone he could contend against. Fan Ming didn't want to stay any longer and immediately fled out of the Divine Radiance Palace. Seeing Fan Ming's action, Mo Qingyun's face turned cold and he shouted, "Chu Shi occupied the 5th Light Divine Residence, and you did not have the guts to cause trouble. But when I occupied this place, you rushed to cause trouble. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Since you're here, you'll have to pay a price for this." As Mo Qingyun spoke, he controlled the Light Divine Residence and trapped Fan Ming inside. After trapping Fan Ming, Mo Qingyun's face turned cold and he attacked Fan Ming again. Mo Qingyun's figure flashed a few times and he arrived in front of Fan Ming and slashed at him with his sword. He had to punish Fan Ming severely and make an example out of him. Otherwise, he would not be able to cultivate in peace if someone came to cause trouble every few days. Mo Qingyun did not show any mercy and displayed his full strength, exuding a fierce aura. Under the influence of Mo Qingyun's aura, Fan Ming trembled and a look of regret appeared on his face. Chapter 2591. Although Fan Ming regretted it, he also knew that it was pointless to think about it now. Now that things had come to this, all he had to do was think of a way to deal with Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun, you forced me to do this. It won't be that easy to kill me. Fan Ming shouted angrily as he took out a black heart and pressed it against his chest. Fan Ming exerted his strength and the black heart entered his body, emitting a sinister corpse aura. The aura that Fan Ming exuded started to rise rapidly after the black heart entered his body. Soon, Fan Ming's aura reached the quasi-universe grade level. At the same time, the injuries that Fan Ming had suffered also healed in the blink of an eye. The heart of a quasi-universe grade underworld corpse. Fan Ming actually has such an item. Seeing Fan Ming's performance, Mo Qingyun was shocked. He was shocked by the scene before him. Mo Qingyun had fought with a quasi-universe grade underworld corpse several times before, so he knew how difficult it was to kill it. He had never expected that a mere peak celestial domain grade like Fan Ming would actually obtain the heart of an underworld corpse. More importantly, the heart of the underworld corpse in Fan Ming's hands seemed to have something special about it. He had used the heart of the underworld corpse to undergo a corpse transformation and still retain his consciousness. This was too strange. This situation really shocked Mo Qingyun quite a bit, making him view Fan Ming in a higher light. Of course, Mo Qingyun only thought highly of him. He did not pay too much attention to it. Given his current strength, dealing with a quasi-universe grade underworld corpse wasn't too difficult. Even if Fan Ming had used the corpse transformation to forcefully raise his cultivation base to the quasi-universe grade level, it wouldn't be too difficult for Mo Qingyun to deal with him. Even if you turn yourself into a monster, I still have a way to kill you. Mo Qingyun's expression turned cold when he saw Fan Ming's corpse transformation. Then, he decisively swung his sword at him. When Mo Qingyun swung his sword, several different auras erupted from the divine Skysplitter sword. Then, a 5-colored sword light was blasted out and slashed at Fan Ming. Phantom Corpse. Fan Ming's body flashed in the face of Mo Qingyun's sword light. His body turned into an afterimage. As Fan Ming dodged, he dodged the 5-colored sword gleam. Seeing Fan Ming's performance, Mo Qingyun's expression changed slightly. His expression became more solemn as he thought to himself, the dark underworld sacred corpse's heart in Fan Ming's hand is not simple. It actually improved his overall quality. When Emo Qingyun discovered this, he put away his contempt and no longer looked down on Fan Ming. The fact that this guy was able to occupy the sixth light divine dwelling meant that he was no ordinary person. Greenwood Divine Ox. Wild's Inferno. Seeing Fan Ming's performance, Emo Qingyun no longer held back and immediately executed several sword formations. As Emo Qingyun attacked, waves of violent saint power erupted from his body. To the underworld Yun is to the A's to the underworld. As Fan Ming was trapped in the formation, green vines quickly wrapped around him. Under the entanglement of these vines, Fan Ming's movements were once again greatly restricted. While Fan Ming was trapped by the vines, beams of fire sword energy and golden sword energy blasted towards him. Faced with this storm of attacks, Fan Ming immediately became flustered and fell into a passive state. Not long after, Fan Ming was struck by numerous sword rays, and hideous wounds appeared on his body. In the blink of an eye, these wounds healed as if they had never happened. When he saw that Emo Qingyun's attack had healed him in the blink of an eye, a pleased expression appeared on Fan Ming's face as he said, "Emo Qingyun, attacks of this level are useless against me." This heart is truly not simple. It actually strengthened Fan Ming's constitution so much. The more he saw Fan Ming's strange behavior, the more curious Emo Qingyun became about the heart. Sweeping a cold glance over Fan Ming, Emo Qingyun's aura became even colder. Immediately after, Emo Qingyun no longer hesitated. He brandished his sword at Fan Ming again and shouted, "Humph! Since I can't kill you with one strike, then I'll use 10, 100, 1,000 strikes." As Emo Qingyun spoke, beams of dazzling sword light blasted out from the divine flame heaven splitter sword. In the blink of an eye, these sword lights were like an inescapable net, enveloping Fan Ming within. Faced with the storm-like sword light bombardment, Fan Ming was unable to escape at all. He could only take it head-on. However, Emo Qingyun's attack was too domineering. The sword lights were too dense. Even though Fan Ming resisted with all his might, wounds still appeared on his body. However, these wounds healed at a speed visible to the naked eye as soon as they appeared. Seeing this situation, Emo Qingyun's brows furrowed tightly. He felt a headache coming on. The current Fan Ming was like a monster that could not be killed unless he was directly blasted into pieces. As his injuries healed, the smile on Fan Ming's face became even wider. "Emo Qingyun, I advise you to give up. I won't be killed in the sacred underworld city. I don't believe that your recovery ability has no limit." Emo Qingyun didn't pay any attention to Fan Ming's words and launched another attack. When Emo Qingyun launched his attack, he was also puzzled. Strange, Fan Ming used the heart of the sacred underworld corpse to transform himself. The light in the light divine palace should be suppressing him. Why is he not affected at all? The more Emo Qingyun thought about it, the more puzzled he became. The curiosity in his heart also grew stronger. He had to admit that Fan Ming's current performance was too abnormal and strange. Given Fan Ming's situation, he shouldn't be afraid of Chu Chen. Why is he willing to stay in the sixth light divine palace? The more Emo Qingyun thought about it, the more puzzled he became. There must be something he did not understand. After thinking hard for a while, Emo Qingyun decided to stop thinking about it and attacked Fan Ming crazily. As Emo Qingyun continued to attack, he gradually found that Fan Ming's injuries were healing slower. Emo Qingyun smiled faintly when he saw this. He said, "It looks like your recovery ability has weakened. It looks like your recovery ability isn't limitless." As Emo Qingyun said this, his attacks became fiercer and fiercer, causing more and more injuries to Fan Ming. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Fan Ming, who had been calm all this time, finally panicked a little. Given the current situation, if he could not break free from the prison, the situation would become worse and worse for him. While Fan Ming was worrying, a ray of sword light suddenly cut across the sky and bombarded the sword formation. The sword formation was instantly shattered by this ray of sword light. The sword formation was forcibly broken open, and the trapped Fan Ming took the opportunity to escape. He said angrily, "Emo Qingyun, I will remember today's grudge. I will definitely return it tenfold in the future." Chapter 2592. Chu Chen. Emo Qingyun glared at the direction the sword light had come from and felt a surge of anger. He had not sought trouble with Chu Chen, yet this fellow had ruined his plans time and time again. This had already crossed his bottom line. While Emo Qingyun was fuming, a haughty young man walked out of the first radiant divine palace. Then, he looked down at Emo Qingyun condescendingly and asked, "Are you Emo Qingyun?" "That's right." Facing Chu Chen's question, Emo Qingyun nodded and did not hide his identity. Chu Chen's face gradually turned cold when he heard Emo Qingyun's reply. He shouted, "You've got guts. You seriously injured my second brother, and you still dare to occupy the fifth Radiance Divine Palace. Don't tell me you want to snatch my first Radiance Divine Palace? If there is a chance, I don't mind staying there." Emo Qingyun replied calmly with an indifferent expression. He didn't show the slightest bit of fear. Emo Qingyun's reply made Chu Chen's face darken, and he was enraged. In his opinion, Emo Qingyun's attitude was clearly provoking him. "If you want to stay in my first Radiant Divine Palace, let's see if you have the ability." As soon as Chu Chen finished speaking, he waved his finger forward and slashed out an imposing sword light. The speed of the sword light was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it swept past the second, third, and fourth Radiant Divine Palaces. The other people in the Radiant Divine Palace were shocked when they saw Chu Chen's actions. Chu Chen has made his move. That kid is done for. Chu Chen's aura is even stronger than before. Could he have broken through to the universe grade? Even if Chu Chen did not break through to the universe grade, he would still be able to deal with Emo Qingyun. Everyone was worried about Emo Qingyun when they thought about Chu Chen's strength. Looking at the sword light that was getting closer and closer, Huayin, who was in the Diwu Light Divine Dwelling, immediately trembled in fear and said, Chu Chen has come out of seclusion. This is really troublesome. Given Master's current strength, I'm afraid he is no match for him." Although Luo Jian and the others did not know how strong Chu Chen was, they were still worried for Emo Qingyun. From Chu Chen's attack, they were able to sense that Chu Chen's strength was extremely terrifying. Chu Chen's strength can be considered unrivaled below the universe grade. When Luo Jian saw the might that Chu Chen displayed when he attacked, he gained some understanding. Under everyone's gaze, a flaming sword appeared in Emo Qingyun's right hand. The heaven-piercing divine flame sword materialized, and Emo Qingyun slashed forward. The sword emitted an earthy yellow light. Earth Ox Mountain Shifting Sword. Waves of brown saint power turned into the shadow of an earth bull and rushed toward Chu Chen's sword light. As these earth bulls ran wildly in the shadow, they quickly overlapped and turned into a huge mountain range. Boom! Chu Chen's sword light blasted the Earth Bull Shadow Mountain range, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Then, a destructive storm of saint power erupted from the Earth Bull Shadow Mountain range. In a short while, the storm of saint power swept through half of the sacred underworld city, as if it was about to overturn the city. Under the aftermath of this battle, some of the wandering sacred underworld corpses were blasted into pieces. Too terrifying. Is that fellow dead? He should be dead. If it wasn't for the Light Divine Palace, this storm would have seriously injured me. Chu Chen's strength is too terrifying. I'm afraid that even if Su Zhe and Wu Wen joined forces, they might not be a match for him. Everyone sighed as they looked at the sacred underworld city that had been shrouded by the storm of saint power and turned into a mess. Under everyone's nervous gazes, the storm of saint power slowly subsided, and the scene in the sacred underworld city slowly revealed itself. Gradually, The figures of Emo Qingyun and the others reappeared in everyone's line of sight. What shocked them was that Emo Qingyun was not injured under the impact of the storm of Saint Power. That fellow is actually fine? He must have borrowed the power of the fifth light divine palace. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to block it. Whether or not he borrowed the power of the light divine palace, it's not easy for him to block Chu Chen's attack. This fellow is indeed monstrous. If he had a quasi-universe grade cultivation base, he might really be able to fight Chu Chen. Everyone was shocked when they saw that Emo Qingyun was not injured. Emo Qingyun slowly walked out of the fifth light divine palace before everyone's shocked gazes. He looked at Chu Chen calmly and said, "Everyone is spreading rumors about how powerful you are. In my opinion, it's just SOSO. Fellow, don't be so arrogant." Chu Shi shouted angrily when he heard Emo Qingyun's words. He took a step forward and said, "My big brother's attack just now was not even a warm-up. You won't be so relaxed after this. You should obediently wait for your death." In response to Chu Shi's words, the people around him nodded in agreement. Chu Chen's attack just now had been too casual. It couldn't be used to measure his strength. He didn't use his full strength. Aren't I the same? Emo Qingyun looked indifferent as he looked at Chu Chen in the first light divine palace. He exuded a strong fighting spirit and said, "If that's all you've got, it's impossible for you to defeat me. You'd better show me what you've got." Since he had already offended Chu Chen, Emo Qingyun no longer had any qualms about angering him. From the moment he had attacked Chu Shi, the relationship between him and Chu Chen had already been irreconcilable. Therefore, even if he begged for mercy, Chu Chen wouldn't let him off. "Your tone is even more arrogant than Su Zhe and Wuan. I hope you are stronger than them." Chu Chen looked disdainfully at the second and third light divine palaces. He then looked at Emo Qingyun and said, "If you are weaker than the two of them, you won't even be qualified to worship my sword." As soon as Chu Chen finished speaking, his figure flashed and charged toward Emo Qingyun. Light shadow thrust. In the blink of an eye, Chu Chen arrived in front of Emo Qingyun and pointed at him. Rays of starlight flew out from Chu Chen's fingertip and turned into rays of sword light. Then, these rays of sword light shot toward Emo Qingyun like raindrops. So fast, so strong. Emo Qingyun's expression turned serious when he saw Chu Chen's attack. He immediately became alert. This Chu Chen's strength was the strongest he had encountered so far. Sword Essence. After knowing Chu Chen's strength, Emo Qingyun didn't dare to hold back and immediately activated the Sword Essence. A storm-like energy appeared outside Emo Qingyun's body and quickly turned into rays of Sword Essence. Chapter 2593. What a powerful Sword Essence! Chu Chen was shocked when he saw the Sword Essence outside Emo Qingyun's body. His eyes were filled with surprise. Subsequently, he looked at Emo Qingyun with a different gaze and said, "I didn't expect your understanding of the 9-direction Godly Bull Sword technique to have reached such a level. I have underestimated you. It seems that you have at least 7 types of 9-direction Godly Bull Sword technique." Chu Chen's eyes flashed when he said this, and he did not hide his desire for Jian Wushuang. The people in the Divine Light Mansion were shocked when they heard Chu Chen's word. This kid has more than 7 types of sword technique. What kind of luck is this? It is indeed a little scary. It seems that this kid has had an extraordinary encounter. Do you guys think that the number of sword techniques this kid has grasped has already reached 9? It should be impossible. If that's the case, his luck is too terrifying. The more they spoke, the more shocked they became. The way they looked at Emo Qingyun was also constantly changing. Emo Qingyun did not care about the guesses of others. He glanced at Chu Chen with a sneer and said, "You guessed right. I do have more than 7 types of sword technique. If you have the ability, come and snatch them from me." Arrogant kid, you will regret your actions now. Chu Chen's face darkened when he saw Emo Qingyun's provocation, and the anger in his heart surged. Then, he pointed a finger at Emo Qingyun, and a cold and gloomy saint energy blasted out. Soon, the saint power turned into a withered bullhead sword radiance and blasted toward Emo Qingyun's head. Soul attack. Emo Qingyun frowned when he saw Chu Chen's sword. His expression became even more tense. His physique was strong, and he had a strong resistance against physical attacks. He did not cultivate any superpowers or powerful magic treasures when it came to soul attack. Therefore, it was more troublesome and strenuous to deal with than to defend against physical attack. Yin-Yang pupils. Evil fiend summoning demons demon prison eye. While Emo Qingyun was shocked, he didn't hesitate to use two eye techniques at the same time. These two eye techniques were soul-level attacks and could be used to block Chu Chen's sword. Then, two rays of icy light shot out from Emo Qingyun's eyes. Chi. The eye force collided with the sword radiance and emitted a dim light. It was a silent collision. However, everyone knew very well that although this confrontation seemed peaceful, it was actually more dangerous than a confrontation of saint energy. Because the slightest bit of carelessness would cause his origin spirit to be injured, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Eye techniques. You have quite a few tricks up your sleeve. Unfortunately, they are all a little too weak. Chu Chen was shocked when he saw Emo Qingyun's performance. Then, he smiled disdainfully and said, "This level of technique might work for galaxy grades and celestial domain grades, but it's not enough for me. What other tricks do you have? Hurry up and use them. Otherwise, you won't have another chance." As soon as Chu Chen said that, the aura he exuded immediately became stronger. Chu Shi, who was behind Chu Chen, was delighted when he sensed the change in Chu Chen's aura. "Big brother, your cultivation base has broken through to the universe grade? It's just a slight improvement." Chu Chen shook his head in response to Chu Shi's question. "Although I haven't broken through to the universe grade, it shouldn't be too difficult for me to look down on the entire underworld sacred city." Chu Chen exuded a strong sense of arrogance when he said this, as if he was looking down on all living things. Emo Qingyun frowned when he heard Chu Chen's words. He was even more wary of him now. At this moment, the feeling that Chu Chen gave him became somewhat illusory, causing him to be somewhat unable to see through him. Although this fellow hasn't broken through to the universe grade, he should be close to it. Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. He now had a clear understanding of Chu Chen's strength. Emo Qingyun's expression hardened as he thought about this. He exuded a strong fighting spirit and said, "In that case, let me experience the strength of a half-step universe-grade powerhouse." Door of Death. As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, he flipped his palm and gathered the power of death on it. Then, a door of light with an icy aura condensed in his hand. The door of death was formed. Emo Qingyun waved his arm and blasted it towards Chu Chen. Then, the door of death expanded rapidly and became several dozen feet tall in the blink of an eye. What a strange mystic ability! What an astonishing power of death! Chu Chen was startled when he saw the door of death approaching rapidly. This was the first time his expression turned grave. Then, he pointed his finger and blasted out a silver sword light. However, to his surprise, the silver sword light blasted into the door of death without causing any ripples. This is the power of space. Chu Chen was shocked when he saw the door of death. He stared at Emo Qingyun and exclaimed, "You actually comprehended the power of space. Where exactly did you come from?" Boom! Before Chu Chen could finish speaking, he was shrouded by the door of death and was eroded by the power of death. While Chu Chen was shrouded, Chu Shi was also imprisoned. He panicked and said, Big brother, save me!" As Chu Shi begged, his hands turned gray and started to turn into sand. "Let's go." Chu Chen's expression stiffened when he heard Chu Shi's pleas. He grabbed him and rushed forward. As Chu Chen rushed forward, a sword appeared in his hand and he slashed at the door of death domineeringly. Under Chu Chen's sword strike, space immediately shook and produced a mysterious energy fluctuation. At the same time, a spatial crack appeared like a portal. Chu Chen did not dare hesitate when he saw the spatial crack appear. He immediately pulled Chu Shi into it. Then, Chu Chen brought Chu Shi out of the door of death. They are out. Seeing this scene, Mo Qingyun's expression changed, and a trace of shock appeared on his face. Chu Chen was indeed not simple. He could actually break through space to escape the attack of the door of death. Compared to Mo Qingyun's shock, the shock in the hearts of the others was undoubtedly stronger. They realized that Chu Chen had a long sword in his hand. He had been forced to use his weapon. Mo Qingyun and Chu Chen had actually forced him to use his weapon. This battle record was too terrifying. Previously, in the sacred dark underworld city, only Su Zhe and Wu En could make Chu Chen use his weapon. Now there was one more person, Mo Qingyun, who was only at the galaxy grade. Chapter 2594. Brat, you actually forced me to take out my weapon. I have indeed underestimated you. Chu Chen's face was cold as he brought Chu Shi out of the door of death. The long sword in his hand flashed with a cold light. At that moment, the aura that he exuded was obviously much colder than before. It seemed like after witnessing Mo Qingyun's strength, his desire to kill Mo Qingyun was even stronger. Although you have underestimated me, I have overestimated you. Mo Qingyun was indifferent to Chu Chen's words. He calmly mocked him and said, I originally thought that the person who lived in the first radiant divine palace would be extremely powerful. I didn't expect you to be so weak. Chu Chen's face darkened when he heard Mo Qingyun's words. It was as though he had suffered a great humiliation. Even if my strength is nothing much, it is still enough to kill you. After Chu Chen finished speaking, his figure flashed as he launched another attack at Mo Qingyun. At that moment, the long sword in Chu Chen's hand emitted a dazzling silver light. Holy Glory World Annihilation Sword Formation. Chu Chen put two fingers on his left hand together and pointed at the long sword in his hand. Then, streaks of imposing sword radiance flew out from the long sword. The sword radiance was like a rainstorm as it rapidly smashed down on Mo Qingyun, directly cutting off Mo Qingyun's escape route. Seeing the might of Chu Chen's sword, Mo Qingyun's expression shook, and he said in surprise, the fourth move of the Sun Bull God vanquishing sword art, Chu Chen actually comprehended it too. This guy really has some ability. While Mo Qingyun was shocked, he did not hesitate and immediately took action to defend against the sword radiance in the sky. Green Wood Divine Bull Sword Formation. Earth Bull Sky Covering Sword Formation. Poisonous Bull Spirit Devouring Sword Formation. Under Mo Qingyun's attack, several sword formations were displayed and quickly formed in the sky above him. In the blink of an eye, 3 sword formations of different colors, brown, green, and purple, were formed in the sky above Mo Qingyun. After the 3 sword formations were formed, Chu Chen blasted out streaks of sword radiance that hit the brown sword formation. Bang bang bang, the sword light slammed into the brown sword formation, and there was a loud explosion. The attack was blocked. When the brown sword array blocked the sword light, the green sword array shone brightly, and green vines flew out. As soon as the vines appeared, they whipped at the sword lights in the sky and destroyed them one by one. At the same time, a purple mist erupted from the purple sword formation. As soon as the purple mist appeared, it enveloped the sword rays and began to erode them. Being shrouded by the purple mist, the power of the sword ray was immediately weakened. Following the weakening of the sword rays, the threat they posed to Mo Qingyun immediately decreased to the minimum. Before long, Chu Chen's wave of attacks was blocked by Mo Qingyun once again. Seeing this situation, the surrounding people were shocked, and the way they looked at Emo Qingyun changed greatly. Chu Chen's attack was blocked by Emo Qingyun once again. This time, he faced it head-on without using the power of the radiant divine palace. This kid's strength is actually so strong that he isn't any weaker than Su Zhe and Wuan. If this trend continues, the sky of the underworld's sacred city will change. Everyone couldn't help but sigh when they saw Emo Qingyun's performance. Their evaluation of Emo Qingyun rose greatly. Shan Huaiyin, who had the same feelings as everyone else, was also shocked when he saw Emo Qingyun's display of strength. Master's strength is too terrifying. If he breaks through to the celestial domain grade, Chu Chen won't be a match for him. He actually blocked it. Surprise flashed in Chu Chen's eyes when he saw that Emo Qingyun had blocked his all-out attack. He said, "Your performance has indeed surprised me. It looks like you are qualified for me to fight you with my full strength." Emo Qingyun shook his head nonchalantly when he heard Chu Chen's words. "Since you want to fight me with your full strength, I won't hide my strength anymore. I will play with you with my full strength." Bloody calamity door. As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, he flipped his left palm and a blood-red light flashed on it. In a short while, this blood-colored glow transformed into a blood-colored door that emitted a cold, sinister, and bloody aura. "Go!" Emo Qingyun waved his left palm, and the bloody calamity door transformed into a streak of blood-colored light that flew towards Chu Chen rapidly. Chu Chen's expression froze when he saw Emo Qingyun's attack. His eyes were filled with vigilance. The memory of the door of death was still fresh in his mind. He felt as though he had just survived a calamity. Thus, he instinctively felt that this blood-colored door was even more dangerous than the door of death. Chu Chen didn't dare be careless in the slightest. He immediately slashed at the bloody calamity door. Under Chu Chen's sword, a dazzling sword shadow blasted toward the bloody disaster. To Chu Chen's surprise, the sword shadow passed right through the bloody calamity door. Spatial power again? Chu Chen's expression froze when he saw the bloody calamity door's performance. He was even more shocked in his heart. To him, this situation was too strange and abnormal. Immediately, the way he looked at Emo Qingyun changed greatly. He said in shock, with this kid's galaxy-grade cultivation, his comprehension of the spatial power has actually reached such a level. Could he be the reincarnation of an old monster? Chu Chen's fear of Emo Qingyun rose to a new level when this thought appeared in his mind. If that was the case, the situation wouldn't be good. While Chu Chen was shocked, the door of bloody calamity blasted into his body and restrained his providence. At the same time, Chu Chen's face turned red. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, and his complexion darkened. "Big brother, he's injured." Chu Shi trembled in fright when he saw the blood at the corner of Chu Chen's mouth. His eyes widened. In his memory, even if Su Zhe and Wuan had joined forces, they hadn't been able to injure Chu Chen. Now that Chu Chen had been injured in the fight with Emo Qingyun, he couldn't believe it. Could Emo Qingyun's strength be stronger than Su Zhe and Wu An's? Chu Chen is injured. He was injured by Emo Qingyun. This can't be true. How could Emo Qingyun injure Chu Chen? This kid has hidden his strength well. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. At this rate, perhaps the sky of the sacred dark underworld city will really change in his hands. The people from the Light Divine Palace were also shocked when they saw the blood at the corner of Chu Chen's mouth. Emo Qingyun's current performance had indeed given them quite a scare. Given Emo Qingyun's cultivation, if he could injure Chu Chen, he would be proud even if he lost later. After all, Su Zhe and Wuan had joined forces and failed to force Chu Chen to such a state. Chapter 2595. You actually managed to injure me. You really surprised me. A cold smile appeared on the corners of Chu Chen's mouth when he sensed the surging vital energy and blood in his body. His eyes turned blood-red as he said, "Congratulations, you've successfully infuriated me. I won't hold back anymore. I'll let you know what despair is." The aura that Chu Chen exuded immediately changed after he said those words. At that moment, he seemed to have become illusory and had merged with heaven and earth. "Do you only know how to say this? Since the beginning, when did you plan to let me go?" Emo Qingyun did not care about Chu Chen's anger at all as he mocked him with a look of disdain. As Emo Qingyun spoke, two terrifying auras emerged from the second and third light divine dwellings. Then, the crowd saw two figures flying out from the second and third light divine dwellings. When the crowd saw the two figures clearly, they were shocked and looked at them in awe. The fight between Emo Qingyun and Chu Chen had actually alarmed Su Zhe, and Wu, and things seemed to be getting more and more complicated and interesting. "Little brother, you are right. This fellow only knows how to boast all day. Chu Chen, do you really think that you are invincible in dark underworld sacred city just because you have moved into the first light divine dwelling? Io, what happened to you? You seem to be injured." "You are injured? That's great. We can beat him up when he is down." Su Zhe and Wu and left the light divine dwelling and went to Emo Qingyun's side to make fun of Chu Chen. It was obvious that they were on Emo Qingyun's side and were prepared to join forces to deal with Chu Chen. Chu Chen's face darkened when he heard Su Zhe and Wu An's teasing. He shouted angrily, "Su Zhe, Wu An, this is none of your business. You had better get out of my way to avoid getting into trouble. Chu Chen is threatening me. I am so scared." Su Zhe pretended to be scared when he heard Chu Chen's words. He patted Wu An's shoulder and said, "Wu An, Chu Chen is threatening me. What do you think I should do?" "What should I do? Of course, I should beat him up." Wu An laughed heartily at Su Zhe's question and rushed towards Chu Chen. Seeing Wu An's action, Emo Qingyun was stunned. He was caught off guard. He truly never imagined that the battle between him and Chu Chen would actually become such a situation. While Emo Qingyun was in a daze, Su Zhe grinned at him and said, "Little brother, let's go help Wu An and get rid of Chu Chen together." After Su Zhe finished speaking, his figure flashed as he launched an attack on Chu Chen. These two guys are really interesting. Although the battle between him and Chu Chen was disrupted by Su Zhe and the other person, Emo Qingyun did not mind this. In his opinion, as long as he could deal with Chu Chen, it was fine. As for the method used, it was not important. Emo Qingyun's figure flashed a few times. He also joined the battle and joined forces with the other two to deal with Chu Chen. Su Zhe and Wu An have also joined the battle. It seems that Chu Chen's situation is not good. That's right. Emo Qingyun is already a headache for him, not to mention Su Zhe and the other person. It's also Chu Chen's fault for being too overbearing and making too many enemies in the sacred dark nether city. Seeing the situation before them, everyone could not help but sigh and feel worried for Chu Chen. In their opinion, facing the joint forces of Emo Qingyun and the other two, Chu Chen was probably doomed today. A bunch of ant-like things. Since you're courting death, I'll let you see my true strength. Facing the joint attacks of Emo Qingyun and the other two, Chu Chen's face was gloomy, and his figure became even more illusory. Subsequently, Chu Chen, who was besieged by Emo Qingyun and the other two, suddenly disappeared with a flash. Seeing such a scene, Su Zhe's expression trembled. He immediately realized that something was wrong and said in shock, "Oh no, Chu Chen comprehended the power of space. This should be the space penetration technique." As soon as Su Zhe finished speaking, Chu Chen's figure appeared behind Wu An and sneered. "You have some eyesight to be able to recognize that this is the power of space penetration. This is my recent gain. I hope the three of you will like it." Light shadow stab. As Chu Chen spoke, the long sword in his hand shone brightly with silver light and blasted out numerous sword shadows. In next to no time, these sword shadows swallowed Wu An and bombarded him violently. Before long, under the attack of the sword lights, Wuan suffered extremely heavy injuries. "Wuan, how are you?" Seeing Wu An's situation, Su Zhe's expression trembled, and he hurriedly came to his side. Hearing Su Zhe's words of concern, Wu An's expression became tense, and he waved his hand and said, "I won't die for now." Chu Chen comprehended the power of space penetration. "It's probably not too possible for us to deal with him. I didn't expect that this fellow actually reached this step. The two of us miscalculated this time." Hearing Wu An's words, Su Zhe's expression trembled, and his fighting spirit weakened. After heavily injuring Wuan with a sword, Chu Chen revealed a complacent cold smile and said, "How does it feel to have extreme joy turn to sorrow? You didn't expect that I had already comprehended space penetration, did you?" After saying this proudly, Chu Chen glanced at Mo Qingyun with a cold glint in his eyes. "Kid, in the past 100,000 years, you are the only one who has injured me. As thanks for injuring me, I will take special care of you." As soon as Chu Chen finished speaking, his figure disappeared and directly entered the space. Then, Mo Qingyun and the other two's perception of him was immediately forcibly cut off. Turns out that he relied on comprehending the power of space penetration. Upon seeing this, Mo Qingyun was stunned. Mastering this kind of power means that he is indeed invincible among those below the universe grade. As Mo Qingyun sighed, a figure appeared beside him and brandished a sword to stab him. Upon seeing Chu Chen's figure appear, Su Zhe and Wuan exclaimed, "Little brother, be careful! Sword intent!" Upon hearing the two's warning, Mo Qingyun's face turned cold and he immediately conjured his sword intent. Sword-shaped chi with an imposing aura appeared beside Mo Qingyun and resisted the sword lights around him. In a short while, most of the sword lights that Chu Chen had shot at Mo Qingyun had been blocked. A small portion of the sword lights hit Mo Qingyun. Although it caused some injuries, it didn't pose a fatal threat. Sword intent. This little brother is indeed not simple. No wonder he could injure Chu Chen. It turns out that he still has such a trump card. Upon seeing Mo Qingyun's performance, Su Zhe and Wuan were astonished and had a higher opinion of Mo Qingyun. Su Zhe and Wuan were shocked. The sword intent beside Mo Qingyun had also caused some injuries to Chu Chen. Chapter 2596. Under the attack of my sword aura, I'm afraid you won't have it easy either, right? After blocking Chu Chen's attack, Mo Qingyun turned to look at him and teased him. "Although your space traversal is mysterious, I have the protection of my sword aura. It's not much of a threat to me. It's not enough for you to kill me with this. If you have the guts, you can fight with your life on the line. Perhaps you can pose some threat to me." As Mo Qingyun spoke, he activated the Absolute Beginning Darkness Creation bloodline to heal the injuries on his body. Under the power of the Absolute Beginning Darkness Creation bloodline, Mo Qingyun's injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Mo Qingyun's performance frightened Su Zhe and Wuan. The injuries on his body are actually healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This kind of physique is so strong. In this way, if Chu Chen goes head-on against him, it's equivalent to looking for a beating. I didn't expect that Chu Chen comprehended the law of space and was restrained by little brother Mo. Everyone always says that there is always something to overcome another. It should be like this. While Su Zhe and Wuan were shocked, they also revealed delighted expressions. They were very happy to see Chu Chen suffer. Under Su Zhe and Wu An's gazes, Chu Chen's expression darkened as he said angrily, "Kid, don't be so arrogant. I was just careless earlier." As soon as Chu Chen said this, his gaze turned cold, and his figure disappeared once again. Mo Qingyun did not care about Chu Chen's actions and closed his eyes tightly. Seeing Missouri Qingyun close his eyes, the surrounding people were shocked. They were all frightened by this scene. That kid is too arrogant. He actually dared to close his eyes while fighting with Chu Chen. He was indeed a little careless. Although his methods are powerful, Chu Chen is not an ordinary person after all. He will regret it very soon. He will regret doing such a thing. While everyone was shocked, they also expressed their disdain towards Emo Qingyun, thinking that he was courting death. Under the gazes of everyone, Chu Chen's figure flashed and appeared behind Emo Qingyun, and then he shouted, "Kid, you're arrogant. Now I'll let you know the price of arrogance." As Chu Chen spoke, he thrust out the long sword in his hand, releasing a dazzling sword light. Then, streaks of sword light with threatening aura blasted out from his long sword. Sword energy rise. Sensing Chu Chen's attack, Emo Qingyun's gaze turned cold and he immediately activated his sword energy. At the same time, Emo Qingyun turned around and charged towards Chu Chen. As for the sword light that Chu Chen blasted out, Emo Qingyun directly disregarded it, and he seemed to intend to fight with his life on the line. You're crazy. When he saw Emo Qingyun's actions, Chu Chen's expression immediately shook, and a strong feeling of uneasiness arose in his heart. He felt that Emo Qingyun's actions were too crazy. Then, Chu Chen did not dare to hesitate and immediately retreated. How can I let you succeed with the same move twice? When Chu Chen retreated in fear, Emo Qingyun's figure flashed and appeared in front of him. After blocking Chu Chen's path, Emo Qingyun hugged Chu Chen and locked him in his embrace. Seeing Emo Qingyun's actions, the panic in Chu Chen's heart immediately intensified, and he said in fear, "Quick, let me go. Are you crazy? Let you go?" Emo Qingyun shook his head and revealed a smug, cold smile. "It wasn't easy to capture you, so how can I let you go so easily? Obediently fight with your life on the line. Sword energy. Nebula Saint Cloth. Sacred glory, super power, ignite. Thunder fire dragon sacred body." After Emo Qingyun restrained Chu Chen, he immediately used various superpowers to attack Chu Chen, who was in his embrace. Then, waves of terrifying thunderfire power bombarded Chu Chen's body. After being attacked by the thunderfire power, Chu Chen's chi and blood immediately surged, and he suffered serious injuries. "Boy, you're courting death." After being injured by Emo Qingyun's attacks, Chu Chen's face darkened, and his expression became ferocious. He said angrily, "You think too highly of yourself if you want to fight with your life on the line. Now, I will let you feel despair and let you know that it's useless." Celestial flame, sacred body. When Chu Chen shouted angrily, a terrifying flame power erupted from his body. Then, Chu Chen's body turned into flames, and there was a flame chi gang outside his body. As Chu Chen activated his sacred body, the thunder fire power's damage to him immediately weakened to the extreme. This guy also has a sacred body, and it seems to be even stronger than mine. Sensing the aura of Chu Chen's physique, Emo Qingyun was shocked. He was very surprised by Chu Chen's performance. He did not expect Chu Chen to hide such a trump card after fighting with him until now. Compared to Emo Qingyun's surprise, Su Zhe and the other man were undoubtedly more shocked. Chu Chen was forced to activate his sacred body. Little brother Emo is really good. Chu Chen can only admit that he is unlucky to meet such a ruthless person like little brother Emo. Let's go and help little brother Emo. Seeing that Chu Chen had activated his sacred body, Su Zhe and the other man exchanged a few words and joined the battle. As Chu Chen and the other man joined the battle, they continuously used their superpowers and bombarded Chu Chen. Soon, a fist radiance with a threatening aura and a sword radiance with a sharp aura bombarded Chu Chen domineeringly. Seeing the fist radiance and sword radiance approaching, Chu Chen immediately panicked. He struggled madly and roared, "You lunatic, do you want to die? Let go of me quickly." Unfortunately, no matter how Chu Chen struggled, he could not get rid of Emo Qingyun's arm. Then, Chu Chen looked at the fist radiance and sword radiance bombarding him with a desperate gaze. Bang bang bang. The fist radiance and sword radiance bombarded Chu Chen and immediately exploded with a loud bang, creating a terrifying Saint Power Storm. Under the impact of this Saint Power Storm, Mo Qingyun was sent flying and could no longer lock Chu Chen. When Mo Qingyun was sent flying, Chu Chen was also sent flying and hideous wounds appeared on his body. After getting rid of Mo Qingyun's shackles, Chu Chen did not dare to hesitate and immediately escaped with Chu Shi. He roared, "Boy, I will remember today's grudge. I will definitely get back at you in the future." At this moment, Chu Chen finally got rid of Mo Qingyun and had to leave this place immediately. Otherwise, if he was entangled with Mo Qingyun again, he could not afford to risk his life. Mo Qingyun was not afraid of death, but he did not want to be buried with him. Chu Chen's figure flashed a few times and he arrived at the edge of the holy city of dark underworld. He raised his hand and slashed at the void. Under Chu Chen's slash, a space crack was cut open in the void. Chu Chen quickly brought Chu Shi into it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.